Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hansen, joined by the great Ben Reeves.
Hello.
Old puffy hair. We have Kyle Hilliard.
I'm not great.
Old red hair. And then we have Jeff Cork.
Hey, how's it going,
old
buddy?
tidy hair. Real good. I'm so glad to have you, man.
I'm so glad to be here.
We got a lot to cover on this show. Ben Reeves, Kyle Hilliard, and I, we were out in New York over the weekend playing the Nintendo Switch.
Mm-hmm.
We had a good time.
We're trying to have a good time. We spent hours playing it. We have a lot of impressions to share, hardware, software, underwear, everything you could possibly imagine. And then after that, we're going to talk about Yakuza 0 with Jeff Cork, which is a game you were surprisingly hot on out of the blue.
Just try and shut me up.
And then after that, we have some great community emails. And then the back half of the show, we are joined by Karthik and Guha Bala, who run Valen Studios, which you might not know. It's a new startup out in New York, but you might know them a little bit better from Vicarious Visions.
Oh.
They founded a studio called Vicarious Visions in 1990. The studio's been around for 27 years. It's cranked out over 100 games. It has an insane gameography.
So basically, if you like an Activision game, and you want to play it on a portable system, they did that one.
Yeah.
They 100% did that one.
They did the Marvel Ultimate Alliance sequel.
That's true. They really did. So we talked to them just about what it takes to run a studio for that long, working with your brother. They've worked with so many licenses all over the place. We talk about like the Game Boy Color version of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, which they won a BAFTA for, and the crazy tech needed to put that together. Yeah. Try and talk about Call of Duty Roman Wars, which is a Roman period spin-off of Call of Duty that they were developing. There's footage out there. They wouldn't go too much into it. But then they also talk about Guitar Hero 5 on the Wii, and they outline a multiplayer mode, which is just insane that I completely forgot existed. But it's a neat little Nintendo twist. So it's a good interview. They are incredibly intelligent guys, so check it out if you want to learn more about the history of Vicarious Visions and then their new studio, Valen Studios.
Cool.
But for now, Nintendo Switch, you guys. Kyle, outline this trip. How'd that go?
We got on a plane, and then we flew to New York
What color
City.
was the plane
It was
first?
kind of like white, I think. And then we went to our hotel room.
Kyle.
Hold on, I actually am building up to starting talking about Switch.
Okay.
I promise.
All right.
What were you going to?
I was going to say, could you tell it in an entertaining way that the audience will enjoy?
Yeah, that's a lot to ask of me. So plane, right? Hotel. Then we watched the live stream, the Nintendo.
Okay,
live
there we
stream.
go.
Yes,
in our
which
hotel room.
everyone saw is in Japanese translated. If you didn't watch it, they broke down exactly what games are going to be there at launch, some of their third-party support, stuff like that.
Yeah, they also had the price and release date. That was-
Mostly entertaining, but I mean, I heard a lot of backlash online about it. Like people complaining about how
Online?
terrible the live stream was. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it seems like the internet wasn't happy about something.
So they announced $199, $299.
$299.
Sorry, $299 for the price of the Switch. It's coming out March 3rd,
And
which is surprisingly early.
Just the system
Also
too,
lower
which
than
I thought was
it.
interesting. I thought they maybe bundle in like 1-2 Switch or a game or something, but it's just the system.
It's not. They have two variants. They have the color Joy-Cons, the red and the blue, and then they have the gray Joy-Cons. So watching that, we all watched it in the hotel room. I was impressed by that stream. I had pretty low expectations. I thought it was going to be more business oriented and just talk about the price and some guy up there with, pie charts and all that stuff. But some surprising game reveals in that bundle. But keep outlining the trip, Kyle. Then what did we do?
And then the next day was pretty much we played Switch. Like we got up early, and there was a short presentation from Reggie Fils-Aimé, who just basically recapped what we had seen last night on the stream.
It wasn't filmed or broadcast. It wasn't allowed to be because he swore up a storm. No, it was just very vanilla. But the one interesting thing there is he stressed that not all third-party games and support was outlined in that thing last night. There's going to be more announcements coming soon for other games coming. So don't think that this is it for 2017 as far as what they've announced.
Yeah, and it was a weird stage. They had like a fake airplane set up and a fake diner.
Yeah.
With like, and then they had a bunch of like Switch consoles around in glass cases and stuff. And then
A
from
real
there,
couch.
yeah, and then from there we were just let into a room for the rest of the day, pretty much. That just had a bunch of Switch consoles. It felt like a mini E3.
Yeah,
because it felt like Nintendo's booth. They had a big Zelda section. They had the 1-2 Switch areas to play were like two glass cases that you could stand in so people could stare and gawk at you while you made yourself look like a fool.
and we cranked out some videos from on site there, and we were able to capture some direct feeds of like Zelda and Splatoon and 1-2 Switch, even though it was filmed with a GoPro that they set up. But if you look at our YouTube channel, we also have a video that's just called "Are the Nintendo Switch controllers comfortable?" that gives a good outline of what that event actually looked like, and all the different stations set up and whatnot.
Yeah, but then us three split off and we played a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, play games all day.
Yeah. So it's a tough thing to know where to start talking about the Switch. My evolution was I was impressed by that stream, by some of the reveals, and we can get into the games in a little bit here. And then after getting hands-on and seeing the software was actually at that event, I think Zelda looks red hot. I cannot emphasize enough. Like, I regret not putting Zelda on my top 5 now in last week's episode. Like,
You're insane.
I want to talk more about Zelda. I just cannot imagine fans being disappointed with what we've seen so far. It seems so cool.
Looks great. Could be one of the games of the year. I mean, if it comes out as good as
there's got to be a twist. It looks too good.
It's too good.
Wait, I can skip all story. Okay.
Oh, that trailer.
Yes.
Honestly, one of the best trailers I've seen in a long
You're
time, I feel
insane.
What?
Absolutely.
You didn't like the
I have
trailer?
watched that trailer like 4 times.
It's
I watched
amazing.
people talking about how great that trailer was.
Yeah.
And then my wife and I have a ritual every night. We watch 2 episodes of The Sopranos. And then afterwards, I'm like, I haven't seen this trailer. I'm going to pull up this trailer real quick. I started
You
it up.
can't go from The Sopranos to a Zelda trailer with your wife. What do you think she's going to be? Just blown back in the chair?
No, I was expecting that. I was not expecting to be instantly embarrassed by the quality of the voice acting in that. It seems like if you had it on mute, it was nice to see a bunch of really kick-ass looking gameplay.
Yeah.
But the voice acting, when removed from whatever cutscenes they're associated with, it sounds like garbage. And
Zelda's voice is a little...
their trailers are always...
We also did watch
pretty
it in
mediocre.
Japanese. The first time we watched that trailer was in Japanese.
That would have been better.
Yeah.
It's very anime.
Yeah,
I think if you take it in that context,
I don't
like,
know
what
about-
anime
but
is.
it's just not very good.
You love like quirky Zelda, and that's what I love as well. And I feel like towards the end, when the music's building, the main theme's building, and it just like rapid fires through like all these awesome designs for characters that in theory you'll be
like I said, the
interacting with in
gameplay
game.
was cool, but like as a trailer, was not.
Wait, so you're weighting the... I mean, I agree with you. The voice acting was not good, but you're weighting it a lot in terms of the quality of that trailer. Like there was...
Well, you guys said that the trailer was awesome.
It
I'm
was
saying
amazing.
It is as a snippet of like gameplay footage that is intercut. That is cool. That's like a cool sizzle reel. But a trailer is like its own form of art that is like edited in such a way where it's just like, this is a powerful piece.
I think it builds
of
to that.
editing.
It might start slow with the voice acting. I think the climax of that trailer is still a fantastically produced trailer.
Absolutely insane.
Also,
Anyways,
the scene of Zelda, like you guys would probably disagree with me, but the scene of Zelda, like crying, like I am fascinated by what is going on there. Like I want to know what the hell is
the
going
pig
on.
cloud took over a castle.
Calamity Ganon.
Oh, thanks. All right.
Anyways, I think where I was going with that is saying Zelda looks red hot. The other software on the floor, the more I reflected on it, I've just been in amazement that like this is the best they had to put out there. Like the idea that Nintendo funding a big push for the Nintendo Switch and they fund games to the best of their ability, and we get games like 1-2 Switch and ARMS.
And you were really into 1-2 Switch when they first showed it.
In that stream, I'd imagine like, oh, there'll just be some fun, quirky little thing, and
Like
it turns out
WarioWare-esque kind of like...
right.
Or
And-
even their Nintendo Land, right? It's their version of that.
And we don't know what the overall structure of the game is going to be. It could be a really clever package for the way of framing all these games together, but it just seems like a series of micro games in the worst sense. I think like pull up your Joy-Con to, in the Wild West style duel, like that was kind of fun. It's a reflex test. I can't imagine you'll do that more than 10 times and be entertained if you're over the age of 10.
I have a question. Like, why don't they brand that as a WarioWare game? Is it because WarioWare is so closely tied to that visual style, even though it kind of mixes realism and the goofy cartoon stuff?
It's a different development team too. So it's the producer for 1-2 Switch is the director of Mario Kart 7 and 8, so it's separate from the WarioWare team.
But presumably they have the rights to WarioWare, and they can say now what you're making is a WarioWare game.
Yeah, and I'm sure that came up at some point. I'm really looking forward to whatever the Wario game on the Switch is. But with 1-2 Switch specifically, like it's much more of a slow-paced thing. It's the classic Nintendo getting out of the gate with Nintendo Land, Wii Sports just trying to show off the controller. It's tough to show off in a WarioWare game like, hey, here's how our quote-unquote HD Rumble feels. They just want you to understand that in a more slower pace.
It's also... it also uses all like live action people to like explain the games, and I'm guessing that was done as a way to speed up development. I could be way off. I imagine it would be easier to film people showcasing how these games work than it is to animate WarioWare characters.
I mean, some of those WarioWare characters are so simple, though.
Yeah,
I mean, just
like
with
I could be.
animation.
That's just totally conjecture on my part. Like,
Yeah.
let's. Here's a bunch of weird games. Like that, you guys go off and you guys develop these.
Mhm.
We'll work on the multimedia side. We'll hire actors and we'll do that.
It feels like a
separately or
collection
something.
of like weird tech demos that they're
Yes.
just like
Yeah.
bundled together. They weren't really fully formed games even. They were just sort
No.
of like, we could do something like this if you want to develop a game
Mhm.
around this like concept of like how the controller moves or how the rumble works with the controllers, but they're not really fully formed games and they just kind of collided them together in a package.
Yeah, I
So
feel
how do
like
you not bundle that with the console?
That's the
No,
confusing
that's the
thing.
other
Feels
thing
like
is
it
like,
should be in the box.
especially considering how those games really aren't that fun. Like
And it's gonna be a
perfect
little
for a
bit cheaper. But I
bundle.
mean, to be fair, I only played 4. There could be hundreds of those things in there. I mean, especially because there's not much going on the screen. They want you just to focus on audio, so they can, in theory, really crank those out.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll really impress us with the overall package. But you seemed a little warmer on it, Kyle, than I was.
I think I had a better time with it than you guys. Like just as a goofy, like it kind of. If you think of, remember that Double Fine game, like Connect Party.
Yeah, Happy
Like-
Action Theater.
Yeah, Happy Actually there. If it's kind of, I don't know how it's going to be structured, but if it's something like that where it's like just kind of throws this game at you, this game at you, this game at you as like a good way, it's not going to have any longevity. I don't think it's going to be like a game that we're like, oh man, 1-2 switch, what an amazing game. But it's like the first week of that game, I think we're going to have a good time with it, like in the office here as a way to kind of show it off, and it'll be goofy and silly, and then we'll kind of push it aside.
I hope so. I hope so.
you get a console, you get 1-2 Switch and Zelda for whatever reason. How many times do you think you honestly put in 1-2 Switch? I mean, you're gonna be playing
Every
Zelda.
time I want to show someone the Switch who is maybe not a huge gamer, which I don't know how frequently that would be, but that to me is who that's for.
Don't you think that would confuse them more to be like, check out this system. You snap these things off. Now, don't look at the screen. We're just going to milk a cow. They'd be like, what are we doing here? Whereas if you're like, hey,
Could be.
check
yeah.
out Zelda. This game is
I
awesome.
don't know. Well, I would like, let's say like my parents, for example, they're gonna see Zelda and be like, that looks like every other Zelda game you've played. But if I'm like, hey,
And
milk
we're
a cow,
disappointed
hey,
in you.
let's pretend to shoot each other. Hey, isn't this crazy? You've never done anything like this before, you know? I don't know if that's gonna be if it's gonna function that way.
Yeah.
If it's gonna be a good showcase for the 1-2 Switch. Don't think I'm gonna buy that game, but that's what I think Nintendo wants people to do.
It's
with it.
interesting, too, how and I do this, too. We think about like a new console's coming out. We put ourselves in the position of having to sell this to people. Like, suddenly we're like a Nintendo employee. Like,
Yeah.
well, I did buy this, and as part of that, there's a stipulation that I am an,
I gotta
I
show
need to
this.
show
everyone
this
I'm a
to
else.
representative
Yeah.
of the company
Right.
and have to put it in its best light. at
Hear
all time.
ye, hear ye. This is fun. I promise. Have fun.
But those are my big takeaways. You guys have big takeaways? How was the arc or evolution of your Switch hype?
I kind of agree with you because I think there was stuff like 1-2 Switch, even ARMS to a certain degree, demoed maybe, looked a little bit better early on. Not great, but then I played it with my best buddy Pro Jared, and I was really unimpressed with just the feel of that game. It's all motion control based.
There apparently,
I
I think
shouldn't say
IGN
all,
had a
yeah.
story that said that you can play without motion controls, which I'm very curious
You
about.
can switch it over, which I think might be better. But
Mhm.
even then, I'm like, look at that thing. I'm like, it kind of looks. The characters look a little dopey. And if you're gonna make a fighting game that's kind of boxing themed, why not just make a Punch Out game, which is something that I think people actually want.
It's so vibrant. I gotta wonder if I'm sure they considered it, but it's a couple things are strange. Well, first of all, I think it's so vibrant they might have been trying to court that Splatoon success. Of like, oh, people like new IP, colorful, fun. Let's just go for that for Nintendo Switch. But it's so strange to me with ARMS that it feels like an expansion of like boxing from the Wii Sports or Wii Sports Resort days,
Right.
and it's like this is a new console. I don't want to feel like just a fleshed out version of this experience that I had 8 years ago.
Yeah. You know what? You're totally right. It feels like a mini game in what should be like a larger package of what should be their Wii Sports, their Switch Sports,
Yeah.
let's say, package.
But you're
It feels
more
like one of 5 things. Like if that was bundled with like 4 other similar games that showed
Yeah.
off the Switch, I think it'd be a better package than 1-2 Switch.
Were you into it though when they had that intense match in the live stream?
Oh, and Spring Boy one.
But here's Springman with a special attack. Oh, Springman won.
Oh, I can't believe that.
Oh, down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier.
This is what it must have been like in the golden age of radio, just gathered around. What's going to happen next?
What was that? Was that
Oh.
the in-game commentary, or was that
That
someone?
was from the stream. Yeah, that was
But was it
actually
in-game, or
No,
was
it
it
was
like
the presenter.
It was the translator.
Okay, that's
just
all right.
kind of mumbling it.
Oh.
Springboard.
There was one of
Oh.
those translators. I don't remember if it was
Springboard
Arms,
one.
but he was really bad.
There's one character. I don't think the art in Arms blew me away, but like the Tron Bond looking lady in the mech suit,
Right.
I kind of liked her design, and I do like the idea of Nintendo creating new IP. I'm
thought
just
the mummy
very
guy looked cool.
unimpressed by it.
I think Spring Arms looks dumb in general, though. I don't know. Like, maybe why not just Rocket Arms or something?
Yeah. Okay, so we've crapped all over those two games.
Here, I liked Splatoon. I did. Play
Did you?
But I mean, it just felt like more Splatoon with like a new weapon,
Uh-huh.
and I think that's a fault of just them showing it early on. Like I think the final game, when we see more of the campaign, like I'm sure it will feel like a sequel.
Also,
but on the
yeah.
show floor, I was like, oh, this feels like a weapon that could have been added. in
Are
the
those
game.
all new maps, too?
I believe so. Yeah. okay,
Yeah, certainly. The confusing part in the Switch reveal video, they showed Splatoon. So that was Splatoon 2 and just no one picked
I
up
don't
on
think
it?
s- No, I think that was Splatoon 1.
Really?
I think, yeah.
Because I know people did map analysis and whatnot, but they were very key to point out that demo was made specifically for the event for Splatoon 2. And
Okay.
and they said in like the list of video coverage that we could do, it's like, hey, you need to emphasize in the video somewhere that this is a demo version made just for this event, doesn't represent the final product. So I would hope that it's more different. There's some
Yeah.
like tiny things, like there's two cats judging you now, and you can roll only if you're holding the kind of paint Uzis.
Yeah, and the dualies, which I liked, and the new super ability was like I had like Mario Sunshine's jetpack, and I could like float around and like shoot big globs of paint down
Yeah.
on the ground. So that was cool.
Splatoon's still great. It's
Yeah.
just very much more
It also
Splatoon.
it doesn't. I could be inaccurate about this because it's been a while since I played Splatoon now. But like when you die, you could usually just go touch the touchscreen to go join your team. I think.
Yeah.
And now you actually like the other players in your team have like a D-pad icon next to them, so you don't have to touch the screen at all. You don't take your hands off the controls to
Right.
go with them. And it was funny because like when I was playing, I instantly died. I didn't instantly die. I did
Probably.
fine. My team won both rounds. Thank you very much.
Quit burning.
But when I died, I like took my hand and started like tapping the screen, and then like nothing was happening. And I realized that they probably don't have touchscreen features so that you can easily switch between TV mode and portable mode, which I'm guessing that's going to be the case for most games. So like, who's going to take advantage of the touchscreen?
Well, hang on. Were any demos there supporting the touchscreen?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think that's the tough thing. Is I was thinking about it more. I'm like, well, they don't know if you're like playing it hooked up to your TV anyway. So if you're playing a game on your Switch on the TV, you're not really going to have access to that touchscreen.
Well,
so
you
I think
have the-
all games have to sort of support a non-touchscreen.
Well, no,
playability.
because it has like the IR sensor, and so it's one of the controllers, one of the Joy-Cons is basically like a Wiimote. So in theory, they can emulate any touchscreen features with that. So I don't know if that's 100% the case. But as far as good software there, stuff that I enjoyed, I think one of the biggest surprises was this little game called Snipper Clips, which is apparently made by an indie studio in London. But it's a co-op game, co-op puzzle solving
Yeah, I was going to bring it up because it was probably the one game I played on the floor that I was most excited about.
outside of Zelda.
Oh yeah. Sorry to clarify.
Yeah.
And to clarify too, we didn't get to play Mario, which is the another
Right.
like really exciting game we should talk about. But
Yeah, for sure.
Snipper Clips, it's like 2-player co-op. I don't know where you're going with this. Did you get to play it 2-player?
Yeah. I played with a guy who I don't know if he spoke English, and he was very confused. And
That
I
was
was
the
trying
same
to coach
thing.
him, like, no, rotate your dumb body like this.
I
I
had
was
the same
basically
problem.
grabbing his Joy-Con for him.
I was like, do this, and he's like, and like nodding, and I'm like, then he wouldn't do it. But you're basically there's like two.
It's almost like you guys should have played together.
We should have,
Maybe you were.
but I don't like. Well, you're these two like little paper creatures, and you can like cut pieces out of each other. So kind of like make yourself into new shapes, like pointy figures, or like make a little scoop out of your body, and then you like solve a series of challenges, like puzzle games. Like you have a basketball on the level, and you're trying to like dunk that basketball. So you need to like figure out a way to create a scoop on your body, and then pick yourself up and like stand on the other character and like dunk the ball.
And it's going to be downloadable. It's going to be at launch. I think it's $20. It's one of those games where it's like, we're all really impressed by it. We talked about like,
Right.
Snipper Clips. That's one of the stars of the show here. And then with more time, I think back and it's like, if that was just an average game at like the Sony section during E3, I don't think it'd be remarkable. But sorry to say, next to like ARMS, it's like, oh, this thing's actually kind of cool.
It looks like a fun. It looks like it reminded me a little bit of Box Boy, not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of like, oh, it's this weird little thing that I didn't know existed, and it looks like I'll have fun with it.
Yeah.
And it looks very kind of indie.
Also, real quick on the positive note, I'm sorry we got out of the gate so negative. We like Nintendo. Is Super Bomberman R. It's insane that on last week's podcast, I was complaining about Konami not making a new Bomberman game. Like, where's just the local good multiplayer Bomberman? And then they announce it with a Nintendo Switch. And there is like a battle mode. You can make it like Bomberman 93. There's plenty of options in there. There's also a more isometric story mode, which story mode in Bomberman.
Blah. You can play that co-op though.
Apparently, it's going to have a cast of all-star actors, though. They didn't reveal any of them.
Is that true?
Yeah, on the game's website on Nintendo, like the game page on Nintendo's website, one of the bullets is like an all-star cast.
Starring Ted Kaczynski as the Bomberman.
I think you can do multiplayer 8 players. It's a pretty good number.
Yeah.
And like that's the
And you can do local, so if everyone has a Switch.
Because Bomberman 4 player is like okay, but if you get like up to 8, I think that insanity of just the bombs everywhere, like that's what makes Bomberman fun in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean Bomberman with 4 players. Still I love that game so
I also
much.
I really like that every Switch is 2 controllers. Like the fact that like when we sat down to play, because it was very like everyone's kind of scattered around. Everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna go play this. I'm gonna go play this. And then like you and I just sat down on Bomberman, and it was very quick for us to be like, oh yeah, here you take one Joy-Con, you take another Joy-Con, let's start playing. And like it's nice that that's always gonna be the package. Is like you'll always have 2 controllers, even if that's not the best way to play that game. If it's not the most comfortable controller, the convenience of it even being an option at all times is nice.
Even if one of those is the right Joy-Con.
The one with the analog stick.
Yeah,
and
right down middle.
Yeah.
So we talked about it in a video we did. We should talk about the comfort of the controllers a little bit. The way I described it is the Joy-Cons, you look at them and you say, is that comfortable? It is exactly how, like looking at it, it feels exactly like it looks. Like if you imagine what it's like to hold something that awkward and small, like playing with it, the best I can compare it to is it feels like a slightly more bizarrely shaped version of like playing Smash Brothers with the sideways Wiimote.
Yeah. But way smaller even.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Well, and Cork, you complain about like having that analog stick in the middle, and that is annoying, but the left Joy-Con is also annoying because then you have the buttons in the middle.
Oh,
so I
so
think
it's bad
either
too.
way,
That's
it's kind of
They're
bad.
both bad in their own ways.
It's a funky design. Yeah, it's not painful, but yeah, it's small. It's a little bit weird. When you put the wrist strap on, it extends the top, the SR and SL buttons on top, and they're a little bit mushy when you press them down. But that does make it a little bit more comfortable because you actually have some place to rest your hands. But what do you guys think about, let's see, the dog face grip, right? So you put the Joy-Cons in the controller handle, this one that adds the curvature to the back. What do you think about that controller?
Mostly pretty good about it. The buttons are still really small. They're kind of like 3DS buttons, and that bugged me a little bit. And then especially the side buttons, the triggers,
shoulders.
they're really not triggers. They're just buttons, and they're kind of small.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to play, that's certainly doable, but I would recommend upgrading to a Pro controller.
It seems like definitely the way to go. I think that controller is pretty comfortable. It's not a knock out of the park, situation. But the Joy-Con grip, it felt closer together than I thought it would be. So it's a little bit weird using the analog sticks when your thumbs are strangely close.
Right.
And then holding the Switch itself in Vita mode, as we'll call it, right? It's bizarre having that flat of a back. Like it's really not that thick. And so it feels kind of like you're holding an iPad or something. And it's just a little bit like, where do I put my hands?
That was a little weird.
Yeah.
I played like they had the E3 demo of Zelda there. Like you just play the opening. You start from the beginning. You play 20 minutes. I actually played that demo just holding the 2 Joy-Cons separately, and it was fine. I actually kind of liked it because I think I've talked about this before. I like being able to separate my hands and
Because you like to hug people while playing.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to put my hands in my pocket while I'm playing
Smart.
games.
And that video shows that the Switch is compatible with putting your feet on a coffee table, right?
That's right.
And
Yeah.
on a couch.
It encourages that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then looking like
really
it's too hot in 1930s South.
And realizing that he's got a
do
suit
the
on and it's really hard to like lean back on
Yeah.
stage in a suit.
By the way, pro move I'm really looking forward to real quick is Joy-Con controllers. I pre-ordered it already and I got the gray Joy-Cons, but I really want to hot swap with someone who has the red and blue so that I can have one blue or one red Joy-Con. That's
I think
gonna
that
be
would
so
look way
cool.
better.
Dude, I'm going to be the
Personally.
coolest kid on the block when I agree to
Wait,
somebody.
you got the gray one?
I got the gray. Did you get color?
No, but I'll go try to get the color and I would swap it.
Okay, thank you. We'll be so cool.
Oh, we'll be cool.
Jeff Cork?
Cool. Tell me about the HD Rumble.
So it's a good word. It's interesting. I was at the Xbox One reveal event as well on the Microsoft campus, and they use the
was
exact
with
same.
you.
Yeah, they use the exact same terminology. I don't know if you remember, but like this is really the next generation
like
of Rumble. This
for
is
the triggers,
HD
right?
Rumble. Yeah. Like feel the way these Forza cars burn rubber.
Well, they're talking about the ice in the glass. The ding,
You know, and I heard on the 8-4 Play podcast, they brought up a good point, which is like everyone craps all over them from like, who cares about ice? Why are they talking about ice in this live stream for talking about HD Rumble? Like, it is a memorable way to get the point across, just to like let you visualize or imagine what this feels like. Like, how else are they going to do that? Come up with some quirky way that you can imagine what it feels like. It's
I
not,
actually kind of like that section of the demo. I thought he was charming and
what a
silly and goofy.
Is that guy?
Oh,
Should we know who he is?
He's one of the lead designers of the Switch hardware, but he
Okay.
seems like, definitely a new face for Nintendo. Because it's tough because all of their lead developers were out at the Switch event. So the stream was from Japan, so they had to have some new faces.
It seemed like
on the
Japan's
stage.
David Blaine or something. Kind of David Bland.
David
I don't know.
Blaine.
It's not
David
great.
Bland.
I apologize for that.
The HD Rumble, it's fine, you know. Like there was a 1-2 Switch game where you had to kind of like rotate your hands and feel how many marbles were rolling around in theory in your controller. It didn't really feel spot on. It was a little bit like it's rumbling. I don't know what it's trying to communicate. I couldn't close my eyes and be convinced that it was actually balls rolling around in there. It felt like 70% like that.
And you could put it up like, I bet if I held a gun to your head
Please don't.
and gave you a glass, you could not tell me how many ice cubes were in that glass.
If you
Just
clink
by-
it around,
No,
Sure.
absolutely not.
Yeah. But this one, it was
if
about
there
like.
was only one, maybe.
Well, yeah.
I hope you kept your
It
bullets in the
definitely.
glass.
I will say, like, if we want to compare it to like the Xbox One's trigger rumbles, which is something that I was actually pretty optimistic about, and I thought would make a difference.
Yeah.
Like, I thought people might prefer to play something on Xbox One because
Just because of that?
Yeah, because I thought when the Forza example you had, where you could kind of feel the revving and the trigger, I was like, that's pretty cool. I will say the HD rumble on the Switch was more compelling than that. Like,
Okay.
there's because it like kind of it encompasses like the whole controller as opposed to like one small section of it. But it wasn't like I'm curious to see what people do with it, but like that one example was like, okay, I think this works.
Yes.
It's
you
cool
know?
technology, but then again, like I don't know how often I'm aware of Rumble when I'm playing a game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
Feeling that feedback when I'm shooting something, maybe, but how high def do I need Rumble? Probably not very high, honestly.
Yeah, I felt like the hardware itself. I think it looks nice. It feels sturdy. Nothing too flimsy there with the actual unit. It is exactly as advertised. When you lift it out of the cradle, it pops right to the handheld version. Right. When you put it back in, I did it a million times because Reese and I were filming some things.
Slight delay there.
There was, and the weird thing is, and this is, I'm sure, early hardware, you know, but like the delay would change. Sometimes it would be close to instantaneous. Sometimes you would wait like 6 seconds before it would pop up on the TV.
I think there was a couple times we were hitting the power button, honestly.
I don't know. It was strange, but like there were several times, even when the Nintendo guy demonstrating it, he'd put it back down and then have to kind of like go back and like press it down just to make sure it was actually cradled in there correctly.
Yeah. One slight complaint, even if we weren't doing it, like that power button's right at the top. So if you do press it down from the
Be
top,
careful.
yeah, you can easily hit the power button.
I think they did say the delay, from going from handheld to TV is a product of the HDMI cable on your television, recognizing that's getting a signal.
Right.
But I did have the same problem where I was like, I think when I was doing the Zelda demo, I took it in and out a couple times, and getting it in took me like one or two tries.
And it's still like a matter of seconds. And then
It's cool tech.
It's
It's really
cool.
great
Yeah.
tech. I think the screen looks fantastic, 720p, obviously.
Yeah.
Cork, being back here in Minnesota, what was your lay of the land? What was the office read? What was your personal read on the Nintendo Switch event?
There aren't a lot of cool games for this thing, are there?
Aren't.
No,
No.
there's one really cool one.
That's the thing.
There's two.
One really cool one.
it's Zipper Clips. That's right.
No, Mario. Mario looks really cool.
When is that
but
coming
of
out?
yeah, we don't know.
They say
enough.
they say
this fall.
2017. So in theory before the end of the year. But at launch, what it's going to be: Legend of Zelda, 1-2 Switch, Snipper Clip, Super Bomberman R, and Puyo Puyo Tetris, which I'm excited to play.
Which
Puyo Puyo
is
Tetris.
also-
Me too,
It's
actually.
very
Actually
good.
pretty good.
I played the Xbox One imported version a little bit. I'm excited about Bomberman. I think this lineup, maybe not so much 1-2 Switch. I think it's solid, but I actually went back and listened to the Game Informer show when they revealed the launch lineup for the Wii U. There were 23 games at the Wii U launch, and everyone was like super positive about it.
Really?
Even Matt Burtz was on the podcast. He's like, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing Zombie U. I think there's a lot of cool, unique lineup games in the lineup there." So it is a relatively weak launch, but every indication is that Breath of the Wild is going to make up for that lack.
It just feels pretty dire overall, though. Like, it didn't seem like there was a lot of third-party support in any meaningful way, which has me super concerned because beat this drum a million times, but it's like
Yeah.
that's always been the problem. It's like as excited as you might be for the Zeldas and Marios of the world, it's like if you don't care about supplementing it with other stuff, then by all means buy this day one.
But they haven't really had like meaningful third-party support since what, the GameCube or something.
Well, I mean, Wii U, it was such a huge message right out of the gate. Is like developers are with us. We have like
yeah, they stumbled over their words at that press
but
I mean,
no,
Wii U even had a Call of Duty, I think.
That's right. And like Batman, they were definitely
Effect
courting.
3.
Yeah, they were courting a wider audience, and that was a big message. Is like third-party support now on Wii U, and that just trailed off with the sales naturally. And I feel like every third-party publisher is very gun-shy. Even EA being like, if there's an audience there, we'll support it. Right now, we'll do FIFA, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm like really excited about Breath of the Wild, but I think one of the main selling points is like the portability of it, which honestly for me doesn't matter that much. It's not like when I'm out, if I've got my phone with me that has games and ways to occupy my time, I understand that like playing a full-fledged console game is a whole different experience. But at the same time, it's like I don't do a whole lot of handheld gaming.
Is there any value for you being at home playing off screen?
I guess it would be nice, but I mean, you end up with like a pretty tragically short battery life.
Yeah,
which
like
is just
3 to 6 hours.
2.5 to 6, depending on the game.
So
Zelda is
it's
3.
2.5. I mean, the 6 hours is if you are watching video offline on the dimmest like setting.
If you're
possible.
looking at the home screen, the operating system.
Yeah, exactly.
Rearranging your icons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with time, some more quirks have come out. They seem to imply it during the stream, but then Reggie seems to imply it even harder that the way you'll interact, first of all, paying for online this time around, free NES or SNES game every month that expires at the end of that month, which is a little different.
It's
but
crazy.
I don't think it's that. You can buy it if you want. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's fun to have a month where everyone's playing Punch-Out, you know? And then how many times do you really want to go back to it?
But I mean, there is already an established model for a paid online service where you get a game, whether you keep it forever or as long as you are a member of that paid service. It's like you already have that. And then for Nintendo to think that, hey, here's another NES or SNES game. It's like in a post-emulation world, that is not as appealing as Nintendo may think it once was. To give someone just in and of itself an NES or SNES game, but then to only have that be this ephemeral thing that only lasts a month it's an
It's
embarrassment.
not ephemeral. You can buy it if you want. You get it.
Yeah, but you don't get it for free. I mean, that's the point.
Well,
It is odd, I think, to
And
like
to make an
it's
apology
odd,
for that is ridiculous.
I'm
When
not
it's like,
apologizing for it. I'm just saying I don't think it's that big of a deal ultimately.
I mean, how many games have the free games on Xbox or PlayStation, have you really played? Like, I go and like download them every month, but then I probably
you're
only
getting them,
played
and you have the option. You know what I mean?
5% of them or something.
But
like,
that's on you. I mean, the fact that
well, maybe there's people who use it more. I'm just saying it's their service. They can do what we want with it. We don't know the price yet.
right.
I think it is weird when it's like this model's established and they're like not really following it. They're kind of doing it, but they're only doing a half step.
Right.
I agree with you, but like I'm not ready to poo-poo it yet because I don't know. We don't know the whole system yet.
I don't know that there's any reason to defend that though. Just like why they can't give you a game that is 20 years old at this point as an enticement to join the online service. It seems ridiculous to me.
it would be. I'm with you, Quirk. Like I would have
Especially
liked
if you
that.
already bought it on the Wii or the Wii U on the virtual console, and none of that stuff transfers from generation.
we
to
know
we
for
don't
sure?
we don't know for sure.
I don't know if we know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
that
I
doesn't
would have
transfer.
like I want it to be an opportunity to build out my old school collection.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that's not what it's going to be. Like I would pay a monthly service to like, my classic games collection is growing, and it's
Honestly,
not really
what
what it is.
the payment is for though is for online infrastructure so that you can like play games with other people online and have the Xbox Live service. Although that sounds weak too.
Here
gotta
it comes.
admit. Like, yeah, it's faulty, but like that's really what you're paying for.
Yeah.
You're not paying for a free game every month.
Right.
That's like the bonus.
And again, I think not knowing the price is a big deal here too. But
Well,
on
real
the
quick, we should
yeah.
mention that those virtual console games will apparently have online multiplayer.
Right, that'll
So,
be
yeah,
interesting.
which is cool. Like, so if like Punch Out is free for the month, apparently you'll be able to play it online with other people.
Well, no.
No, am I
Well,
misinterpreting
not
that?
Punch Out. It's not multiplayer.
Oh, okay, sure. That was a bad example. I was
But you
just,
see
I was just
other
thinking of
people
like a
playing
sports type game. But yeah,
Mario
like
Kart.
Balloon
Mario Kart.
fight.
Right.
There you go.
I
Balloon fight.
wonder if having it be that 30-day window is just so they can cycle over. So years down the road, they'll be like, all right, now it's Mario 3 again. Or are they worried they run out eventually?
I don't
And how
know.
long can they support it? Anyways, but the quirk for playing online with your friends is it appears that you're doing all this through your phone. That there's going to be a Nintendo app, and that's how you're going to message friends, group
Right.
with friends.
Talk to them, voice chat, maybe?
Voice chat.
Well, I saw someone. I think it was the parody Kaz Hirai account tweeted like hey, here's a screenshot of the Nintendo's voice chat app, and it was just a screenshot of the phone, like being of his freaking.
Cork, you seem horrified by this.
It is stunning.
So wait, to separate online multiplayer functions to your phone.
To have like basic functionality like chatting with your party to a phone.
That's the part that bugs me.
If that is indeed, because do we know 100% that's what's going on?
They seem to be strongly indicating that's what's happening, and you think that Reggie would want to clear it up in some of those interviews if that's not the case.
It has been fascinating to look online to see people defending stuff that if anyone else tried to pull a stunt like this, people would be like, this is a terrible idea. This is dumb.
Right.
But they're like, hey, wait and see. Maybe it's awesome. I mean, you already use your phone, so why wouldn't you want to use your phone to
I
talk
really
to?
like the idea. Now, if I'm understanding it correctly, I like the idea of my teaming up with people and like multiplayer functions being on my phone. Like I like the idea of not having to pause the game or close the game in order to get into a party with friends.
So you're a big smart glass user then?
A little bit, yeah. I actually do use smart glass for my Xbox One.
Yeah, take that, smart ass.
Yeah.
Hey.
To like check achievements and stuff like that. I do that. Yeah.
So it's like that. I think
Glasshole.
that's great
Yeah.
as a supplement to something that's already built into the console.
Yeah. Okay.
But to have
we don't know
as
what
like,
that is yet. Yeah.
it seems really strange to assume also that. I mean, I have a cell phone. Most of us have smartphones, but like to assume that every user has a smartphone,
well, especially
like a
with like
kid or a
Nintendo,
family.
like
yeah.
a bunch of 8-year-olds playing it, right?
Yeah.
And my nieces don't have phones yet.
Yeah. Oh,
Hopefully they'll never have them, right?
yeah, exactly. And to think that, like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna let my kids use my phone for 2
That's a
hours
good
while they're
point.
playing something.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of
That
sense.
seems
It's
very
also like
strange.
that's what we are supposed to be paying for. Like I was saying, we're not paying for the free game, but like we should be paying for is that infrastructure to like be able to do voice chat and have friend code or not friend codes, have friend lists and that kind of thing. And it seems like is this just some weird workaround that it's cheaper for Nintendo to do it this way?
Or I think just having one Nintendo app to have people go into is a good way to promote their iOS games. It's a nice promotion avenue, I'd imagine, just to funnel everybody through one
That's
channel.
a cool. I think it's a cool bonus. Like maybe you should have the app, but then you should
Yeah.
also have it through the system.
It's
Yeah,
a
that's what
supplement.
and
we're
maybe
saying,
maybe
yeah.
they will. Maybe they'll patch it. I mean, this thing feels like it's coming in hot. They said like there's a screen share function. Video is going to be added later. They said there's no multimedia functions. In theory, Netflix won't be there at launch. Stuff like that. So I think it's going to be coming alive. Over time.
Is the internet upset about the multimedia thing?
I think sure.
That seems
Some people
weird
are.
to me. That like because I feel like people were complaining about the Xbox One being too multimedia focused.
Right.
Like, just
And
get to
even-
the games.
I think
you
of like
know?
Wii TV back with or TV, I should say, with the Wii U. Like
Yeah.
they had the multimedia push
Mhm.
already, and it seemed like no one gave a crap.
Yeah.
And they eventually killed it. Yeah, it's very strange. But the other thing that people are up in arms about is the idea that the controller cannot be charged. The Joy-Cons cannot be charged when they're in the Joy-Con grip unless you buy a separate $30 thing, which I think is third party.
No.
It's not. It's first party.
No.
Okay. So that's strange. So you can charge the Joy-Cons when it's docked on the unit. So in theory, if every time you're done playing, you just dock them there, they'll be charged and it won't be that
Right.
much of a hassle. But if it dies in your hand, you can no longer play on the TV. You'll have to go into portable mode.
Right. I hated that about my Wii U controller because that thing I felt like had a shorter battery life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was constantly dying, and so eventually I had to start playing it with it plugged into the wall all the time. So I would hate that with the Switch controller as well.
Well, you don't even get the luxury of plugging it into the wall. That's the thing.
Well, that's the thing. Yes, I agree with you, and I'm saying it's annoying because, like,
Yeah.
I'm saying you can't really trust batteries to last as long as you want them to.
Right, right.
Are the
So-
batteries replaceable? on
I don't
Joy-Con?
think so.
I don't know. Cork's
doubt
worried
it.
about charging them up and having them die over time.
Yeah,
Which is going to be a thing because look at our PS4 controllers, the first generation; those are crapping out.
And have they
pretty
said what the
early.
battery life is like on the Joy-Con?
I don't believe they have.
Okay.
Yeah. Cork is a little more angry about this. We were talking about it in the office the other day. It's
I don't
not
think angry is the right word. It's
just
just
disappointed.
a lot of this stuff is just kind of like a step backwards from what you've already been able to do.
Yeah.
And like console manufacturers, it's not like if anyone came out with this stuff, like I said earlier, it just seems like a bad idea because you think that like as an industry, Nintendo does its own thing, and we all
Very much so.
understand that.
Yeah.
But when they do things that are such a weird sidestep from just logic, and in a way that would, I think, arguably are kind of not anti-consumer, but certainly aren't consumer friendly, I think you should be skeptical of that because they are
Yeah.
asking for $300 from you. and there's no reason that you need to defend some of this stupid crap.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
you, Ben Hansen, but
Yeah, I'm trying not to defend it too much or defend it at all, really. But I just feel like people being blindsided, be like, "Huh, this Nintendo system has some quirks." I feel like from the GameCube on, even before that, to some extent, people are. There's always bizarre quirks that people are going to be frustrated by. That is just default Nintendo.
Well, I think
so to be shocked by these things,
Well,
I think it's to be expected.
the bizarre quirks, though, in the past have been, oh, this battery died. Okay, I could just replace the battery. Oh, or I could just use the charger cable to continue playing, so it's not a big deal. But it to fundamentally change the way you're interfacing with the game because the batteries have died, I think is new.
Yeah,
Because in the past you've been able to do like whether it's like I said, replace the batteries or hook a cable up, you can circumvent the issue of dead batteries. But here, you're kind of out of luck unless you spend $30 to buy this.
you just have to play handheld.
Yeah.
To charge it again.
But that still drives Quirk's point home, where you are changing how you interact with that game.
Yeah.
In the interest of charging your, it seems like the grip controller that comes in the box should just have a USB port on it.
Yeah,
or something, just so
exactly.
you can plug it in. But yeah, it's a weird thing.
It's a very Japanese system. I mean, the third-party support outside of EA and FIFA was very third-party focused or Japanese focused. Square and Atlas, all that stuff. And then even just the concept of, hey, it's beautiful because you can play it on the subway, you can travel with it. Like, I don't know how appealing that is to the West as much as they are promoting it. And it's just another big takeaway is, every cynic on the internet's like, oh, this is Wii U Take Two, blah, blah, blah. It's just the same thing. And it's easy to dismiss that. But then you sit back and think, like, how the hell did they message this? Like, what is the message? Take it on the go. That was already kind of the idea with the Wii U marketing, and I don't feel like that caught on. And the extension of now you can walk away even further from your TV and from the home console than you could with the Wii U instead of just broadcasting the image, it's like being played on there.
At least it's not called the Wii Switch. Or something.
Certainly.
So, I think
just-
that'll help. It's a
I just
new
don't
thing.
know how that message is going to find a big audience. Do you guys think, like, how the hell do they say and get that clear message across of like, oh, unless they're just completely out there saying like, this is like the Game Boy and the Wii in one, and just try and make it as broad of an appeal.
Some of the print advertising is already kind of leaning towards that.
Yeah.
Where they have like the NES and the Game Boy.
Right.
Is that true?
Yeah, like they have it as, and it's even like copying old print ads where it's like, this is the culmination of these two things coming
Yeah.
together on one console. So I think that is their message.
If they leveraged the 3DS
Yeah.
brand and the DS brand, I guess that's something that they never fully leaned into. But this is more of this marketing strategy.
it
It's
is
like, I don't know
already-
how they find them.
I think it already has. It's already ahead of Wii U, I think, just because people don't assume that this is an expansion for the Wii.
No.
You know what I mean? Like they recognize that this is a brand new console. This is the new thing for Nintendo. Where Wii U, I mean, we did that video, which people didn't even know what Wii U was. But even like people I know that were into games were like, oh, the Wii U, yeah, that's like a tablet that you buy for your Wii. And I would be the one that would explain them. I was like, no, it's actually the new console. Where Switch, I think, is already beyond that problem. People know that this is something new. And that it is both. I think they're doing a good job explaining that it is both a home TV console and a mobile console.
I think that trailer made that abundantly clear, which was
Taking it on the
just
airplane.
matter,
and stuff,
going on the airplane and stuff like that. I think that people who would even think about walking far away in their house with the Wii U, I think you're overestimating how many people even considered doing that.
Or how many people think that's a problem. Like, oh, I can't play my game now because somebody's on my TV. So maybe we'll have multiple TVs.
It still feels like an extension of that core idea. And with the Wii U, the Wii was such a juggernaut that they were still in the shadow of it so much. So it's still just chained to it. Like, oh, I got to keep the Wiimotes, got to keep all this stuff. So it is a take two on some of those ideas.
Right.
But
it's its own thing. Like, you don't need a Wii.
yeah. You can bring Bomberman with you to those cool parties.
That's right.
Should we focus on some of the games a little bit? Get some uplifting messages going on here. So the Nintendo games they've announced from that event, right? So 1-2 Switch, ARMS, covered that a little bit. By the way, ARMS, it's the producer from Brain Age, and they made a lot of the Street Pass games, and like Rusty's Real Deal.
Okay.
Like, it's an odd team, or at least the head of that team, but I love Rusty's Real Deal baseball.
wonder if
Floating polygonal head.
that'd be
asks
cool
you
if-
questions.
Rusty was like a commentator for.
Or just a boxer.
Yeah, just
Just
beat
a
the crap out of this
sad
sad man.
He's the punching
trying to
bag.
get donuts.
Oh, my
Wasn't he a
divorce.
dog?
Oh,
Yeah.
Rusty won. Fire Emblem Warriors, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. They're adding the battle mode in there. Untitled Pokemon game they list just because Game Freak said like, yep, we're making it. Probably a port, but we don't know.
So it's not a port of Sun and Moon, we're saying?
We don't know. We
Could
don't
be.
know. It could be.
Well, if you had
Could
to
be
bet,
Pokemon
you think
Dusk
it'd be
or something.
completely new?
I don't think it'll be completely new.
I think it's probably a port. Snipper Clips, Splatoon 2, Super Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Real quick, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that's Monolith. Xenoblade Chronicles X just came out last year.
2015.
Was it? Okay, 15.
The very tail end of 15.
That's right,
Yeah.
yeah. But that was a massive game. And the idea that they're already cranking out a sequel to the first Xenoblade Chronicles, just it's a confusing line to try and follow. But that footage, it looked a little rougher than I was expecting. I don't mind the cartoony art style. It's from a famous anime designer. This one isn't directed by the old Xenogears guy who also did the last 2 Xenoblade games.
But
But
it's also, I mean, we should point out that it's for 2017.
in
right?
Japan, 2017.
I thought it was both. No, we're not sure. Okay.
Not sure.
That surprises me. I think I, like most, saw that and was like, oh, well, that'll be later down the line. That's a huge RPG. We'll see that later. So
Yeah, but let's get to the full money here. Super Mario Odyssey, they unveiled it. I have wanted this game for so long. I want Game Informer fans to go back and find somewhere, several times in videos, I have been screaming, what I want from a Mario game is a 3D Mario game where it's like that Simpsons episode in 3D where Homer goes into the real world. I have said that. I must have said it several times in recordings. I've been screaming it for the last 10 years of my life. And the video opens up, and it is exactly that. It's Mario running around in a version of New York City, interacting with real humans. I could not have been more happy to see it.
yeah.
What do you guys think of that Super Mario Odyssey
Ben
trailer?
Hansen did lose his mind in that hotel room. He's like, this is everything I want.
I started trying to eat the
Started
pillow.
rip your clothes off. It was just
Rip my
like,
skin off.
I can't get him inside me
Started
fast
running
enough.
down the hall. We're like, you're missing the trailer.
No, I am also very positive on it. I was like, yeah, this looks really cool. Like, I like how you're it looks like you're kind of traveling around the world and
Yeah.
stopping a bunch of different like environments.
Flying around in a giant hat to get there.
Yeah, so it's not just the city, although I think the city looks cool and different, and I like that. But there was like this weird like garden level with giant radishes or something, which looked like it had a different art style too.
Really abstract Technicolor.
Which I really like, actually.
Yeah.
If they have like a bunch of different worlds that have different art styles even, would be really fun, I think. So
And
maybe you could
Miyamoto-
return to like old school like environments for Mario. like
Yeah.
a sunshine level or a galaxy level even maybe.
For sure. Yeah, in the interview, the live stream that they did at the event, Miyamoto was definitely citing a lot. Like, hey, this is like Mario 64. This is like Sunshine. We're definitely going back to that era. It's interesting that they would say that over Galaxy. I guess Galaxy has different connotations with the gravity and everything.
Right.
But the idea of them in their new Mario game, presumably from the Tokyo studio, I guess we don't know, and from the 3D World team, to have their main reference point be Mario 64 is so exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
The platforming is a big thing. The one cool thing where he threw the hat out
Yeah, and
and
they
he
jumped
jumped
on
on
it.
the hat. I thought that was a cool little touch.
And it seems to imply some fans picked up on it in the first trailer, like the snippets that they saw, the little snipper clips that they saw. And then it seems to imply even more that you will be swapping hats. Like Mario goes into a hat shop at a certain point. They
Oh.
only show the main hat with the googly
Sure.
eyes on it, but I'd imagine in each world you're getting different hats. And
There's
you're
also,
swapping
you
between
see him
them.
ride a lion and also do some dancing with a beatbox thing.
That's true. Also, there's a point where he tied himself to the mast so he wouldn't be lured in by the siren's song. I thought that was weird to put earwax in his ears.
Started bleeding from the nose. I will say that the trailer ended with the eyes popping onto the hat, and I was like, I don't know if that's what I like, because I think that looks stupid. I know you're into it.
Didn't you
Anthony,
just
but
jump on this thing?
I don't know. So is the hat going to talk? How much do we want to bet that the hat's going to talk?
Oh, of course it's going to talk.
You think so?
Oh, it's
Oh,
going to
what?
be.
do you-
It's
Yeah.
got a
eyes,
Minish
man.
Cap situation.
I hope less so than that, but yeah, for sure. Anyways, but I have some question marks as far as what Nintendo Studios.
Question mark blocks?
Yeah, question mark blocks about what Nintendo Studios have not been announced to be working on something, but presumably are working on the Switch. Intelligent Systems, Color Splash just came out last year. Fire Emblem. They're presumably not working on Fire Emblem Warriors. That's the other team, the Muso team. So Intelligent Systems has had some time now. I think it's pretty big, the fact that they can crack out Fire Emblem and Paper Mario. So might be expecting something from them within a year or so. Alpha Dream, the Mario and Luigi RPG guys. It'll be fun. That's a 3DS team finally getting the bump up.
Yeah.
Game Freak, obviously, Pokemon. Next Level Games has done a lot with Nintendo recently. Metroid Prime Federation Force came out last year, but before that, I mean, such classics as the Luigi's Mansion sequel, Punch Out on the Wii. They're a really talented development team. I hope that they're working on something ratcheting up for the Switch. WarioWare team, again, we don't know. We didn't get that WarioWare on the Wii U. We're looking forward to what they do. Retro. Tropical Freeze was a while ago.
I'm excited to
Yeah.
hear what they're doing next. I would like to see them. I would happily take another Donkey Kong, but I would like to see them almost take a new franchise even.
Be fun
'Cause
for them
they've
to
done Metroid, they've done Donkey Kong.
maybe
else
something
is there?
original. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
they
totally
could do their own
theirs.
original thing. I'd be happy if they went back to Metroid too.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a tease of it at E3. E3 is probably going to be a big Mario E3.
Yeah.
Maybe they're saving retro for beyond that, because if they want to flesh out this portfolio, they're running out of the big studios.
You know, I feel like their Zelda E3 last year was pretty successful. I wonder
Yeah.
if they're just going to be like, we're all in on Mario. Like
I could
that's
see
all
it.
we got.
I could see it.
You know?
I can
Yeah.
see that. Yeah.
Monster Games, we should point out, up here in Minnesota, they did like the Xenoblade port, Excite Truck.
They did the
Excite
Xenoblade
Bots.
port?
Yep,
I didn't
to 3DS.
realize that. I knew they did the Donkey Kong Country port. I didn't realize
Yeah.
they did.
And then
Xenoblade.
they also co-developed Tropical Freeze. So I could see a scenario as well where Retro works on something new and Monster even does the next Donkey Kong Country. That could be
be all right
fun.
with
That's not a bad idea.
Also, HAL Laboratory. The Kirby games, Box Boy. I mean, Planet Robobot came out last year, but they cranked those babies out. So
And
we could see something.
They did a Box Boy last year too.
maybe they'll
Yeah.
do Cube Boy.
Yeah.
I would. You know what? That's not a bad idea, Kyle.
So those are the big mystery studios for Switch development, but it's so fun to see the 3DS teams being merged into the same flow now, and we'll see what comes out of it. Get that Pikmin 3DS team on something new on the Switch.
So is there a do not resuscitate tag on 3DS? Is it just a matter of
don't
time till that
know.
thing's dead?
Seems like it's done.
It's sad to say
Well-
dead. I mean, I think it's a successful system. I think there's
And
a
it
lot
was-
of amazing
Yeah,
stuff
but everything
on it.
dies. Doesn't mean that
Yeah.
it wasn't great.
I think it still has like 2 years in it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it was super hard to find during Christmas. Like, it had a huge Christmas, and there's still a bunch of games coming out for it. I mean, maybe I'm being a little too optimistic with 2 years, maybe 1 year.
Was that super hard to find though? Because they just stopped making them, or
I don't
Ooh,
think
what this guy
so. That's a good
says.
question. But I think it still has a lot of life in it.
I think the 2DS is so great for kids, and
Yeah.
they're still making games for it. Ever Oasis, Pikmin 3DS. There's still some games on the
well, that
horizon.
Pikmin
here.
game we haven't heard in a while.
That's true.
Do you think it could move to the Switch?
Good.
I doubt it, because they knew what the Switch was when they unveiled that. It's not like it was revealed
It also
before
looks.
the
It
Switch.
looks pretty simple. I mean, that's not a knock against the game. It just looks like a fun platformer using Pikmin characters, and
It's
I don't
like a
think
Chibi Robo situation.
that
Yeah.
turned out really well.
Hey guys, we've talked a lot about the Switch.
Mhm.
I pre-ordered it. I was growing a little more pessimistic. So hardware's okay. Future software I think looks good. Current software they had at the event I wasn't wowed by. Breath of the Wild I was extremely wowed by. Those are my big beats.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it.
I think I'm agree with you.
Okay.
Pretty much 100%.
Great.
I think I'm a little more positive on Slipper Clips.
There we go. I think it's gonna be great. Jeff Cork,
Hey, handsome.
you have been playing just a boatload of a game called Yakuza 0 on PS4.
It's true.
Is it only on PS4?
Yes.
Okay. This is Yakuza series has been going on for so long. I feel like everyone has the same feelings on Yakuza. Every single person across planet Earth, where they see the series, they say, "This kind of looks funky. It kind of looks cool. Maybe I should play one of those games someday."
Mhm.
Were you in that boat before you played Yakuza 0?
Yes.
And then you've played how many hours of it?
I don't even know. Dozens and dozens and dozens of hours.
And what do you think?
I think it's great.
Really?
It is so much fun. It's probably, I think, one of the biggest surprises I've had in years.
Years.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's so good about it? What is it?
Well, that's all we have time for. So moving on to letters and emails. No. So basically, what do you want to know?
What is the game
Well,
structure?
I can start you off a little bit. Like
Yeah.
the thing that I've been watching you play it, sort of, like
Yes.
not like actively, but like every time I look, because I can see your screen from where I sit at the office. Every time I look at
purpose.
you, you are doing something completely different
Yes.
and completely weird. Sometimes you're like on the phone making sexy calls.
Yep.
Sometimes you're doing the car racing on the tracks.
Mhm.
One time you were like taking this lady to a schoolyard, like this scantily dressed lady, maybe a prostitute. I don't know. I didn't stick around long enough to find out. And
But
you were,
what's
like,
he doing in
talking
the
to
game?
children. You're getting into fights.
Lots of fighting.
So much fighting, and then you're sniffing panties.
That's
What
that
is
did
this
not
game?
happen, you weirdo.
It's very close. What is the structure of this game?
So it's basically an open world game, and you have two characters that you're choosing from. Or you don't necessarily choose from. It's complicated. So basically, you have two main characters, and in the campaign, it bounces between the two perspectives. The central conflict is around this piece of undeveloped land that is very small, and it's kind of standing in the in place of this major development plan, right? So the Yakuza sniffing around there, to use your favorite word, and trying to make sure that they can figure out who has this land, who owns it, and take control of it and everything. So the two
Okay.
characters are kind of like, you see this conflict through their eyes. And
Are
basically, what's that?
Are they both gangsters?
Yeah, one of them is a Goro Majoma is a like he's a former Yakuza member, some kind of an act of disobedience, and he was kind of tortured for a year, and they just finally like kicked him out of the family. So he's trying to earn his way back in by managing a nightclub, and he's kind of under the thumb of this one Yakuza handler, and he's over in Osaka. And then Kiryu is in Tokyo, and he was like a new member of the Yakuza, and he's been framed with this murder, and he's trying to get to the bottom of it. And by doing so, he's renouncing officially his Yakuza ties and investigating this to clear his name.
So wait, is the story interesting? Because
Absolutely. Yeah, it's super interesting.
Huh.
How does that lead to slot car racing? Like,
Well, basically, you have the open world, and you've got story missions as you might expect. But I think the big gimmick with this is that you have a Tokyo area and then Osaka, and you can kind of switch, go to both of them by taking cabs and stuff. But the world is pretty dense, and there's just a ton of side content that you can dive into it just about any time.
Is it worthwhile, or is it just
Absolutely.
fun?
It's super fun and interesting and crazy weird, and there's just so much to do. And I think what I was most impressed with is how well it's all handled. So there's like a fishing game that is really fun. It's simple, like fishing game, but you catch a bunch of fish, and there's like a mission tied to it where a couple missions actually where you can turn the fish in for rewards. There's like Kyle mentioned, there's the slot car racing where you can also tune your cars and buy parts from vendors all over town. And there's a couple of like missions associated with that. They give you some pretty cool prizes.
You described this game as like the best parts of Deadly Premonition and some of the weirdest parts of Deadly Premonition, except on next gen.
But it reminds me of like a Shenmue and
Yeah.
Deadly Premonition kind of thing. It's the Deadly Premonition thing is mostly in the tone of the side stuff, because
Okay.
the actual campaign is fairly serious stuff, right?
Okay.
But what they do also, the side stuff is when it gets super crazy and weird and funny, and it has a really charming tone to it that I think kind of you like some of the pervier things, of which there are several. You kind of give it a pass in a lot of ways, just because it just seems like it's kind of endearing, and it isn't. It doesn't. It seems more kind of like. I don't even want to dig into
You
this too much.
described it also as
Uh-huh.
Japan, the game.
There's a lot of that.
Okay.
Absolutely. But yeah, it's just got a really fun tone to it, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like the evolution of Shenmue. Is that what like Sega did with the Shenmue team after Shenmue totally tanked?
Does
anybody
It
know?
is Sega that published this thing.
Yeah, it is Sega. Yeah,
So
I
it's
don't
not
know.
like that team.
Yeah, no. Not that I'm aware of.
And also, so this is a good place to jump on because there's been 1,000 of these games. They went back in time,
Mhm.
but Yakuza 0
Yeah.
sems like a clean break. Like
Yeah,
pretty
because
good.
it's a prequel. It's set in 1988. It does
Okay.
have the two characters are kind of they're part of the main series as well.
right.
But this is a nice I'm not a big Yakuza guy going into this, and I didn't have any problem keeping up with what was going on.
Yeah.
You could tell there are definitely some moments where like a character in a side mission will walk away, and then the guy, one of the characters will be like, "Oh, wonder who that is." And it's very clearly fan service for like someone's going, "Oh, this is that guy when he was
Uh-huh.
young." But
I
it's not like
recognize that pervert.
Yeah, exactly. But
do you get in cars and drive around, or is it
there is no driving, which
okay? So you walk around the open world.
you walk around the open world,
Okay.
right? And there's a lot of like hand-to-hand fighting, and each character has 3 main combat styles. You can also unlock a 4th one for them.
Oh,
And then
okay.
there's like a big, massive. It's set up kind of like almost like a pachinko screen, but you unlock various things, and like there's a big, massive skill tree for them.
I saw you breakdancing.
Yeah, one of the styles is like a breakdancing style. You get it from watching some street performers. So you're doing like windmills and head spins and kicking people around. And that style, you unlock the ability to, if someone comes at you with a sword, you bite it with your teeth.
What?
And then
All right,
like,
I'm sold.
slow motion and like fling it back at them, and it like impales them. My favorite is there's a slugger style, which you use a baseball bat, and you can like whirl it around like a nunchuck, and then you've got this heat meter that builds up to 3 levels, and then you can use it to perform special moves. So like the move that I would rely on a lot with Slugger, you basically take the bat and jam it, just knock them down, jam it in their mouth, and then like kick it.
It's graphic.
It's super gross, but
But
yeah.
it's cool. Good
It's just
times.
cool. It's a baseball bat.
Kyle,
they're
is there-
bad guys.
Is there any world where you will play this game?
Yeah, I'd like to try it.
Yeah.
Based on just looking over Cork's shoulder and hearing him talk about it. And I'm just like every other human being where it's like, oh, that Yakuza series, I should check that out at some
Exactly.
point. People are really positive on that. And it sounds like this is the one to kind of try.
Yeah. God. All right.
I noticed one of your fingers is missing, Cork. Does that have anything to do with this?
It's a complete coincidence.
Oh, okay.
I assure you.
All right. You guys want to move on to some community emails?
I want nothing more.
Definitely.
And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We got some great emails from the community. People had great thoughts, great feedback. They sent it into podcast@gameinformer.com. You could be like these people. You listening and you say, this is just something I listen to on my phone on the side. I don't want to be engaged. Hey, get engaged. Get involved. Like a James Brown concert. Send in an
That
email.
reminds me, when are you going to get engaged, Hanson?
Oh, good question. Anyway, send an email into podcast@gameinformer.com and we will read it on air if it makes to the first round of filtering, which is myself reading through all these. And then I bring it to the group. I read the best of the best, and then we choose the literal best of the best, and we ship them out something real nice.
At that point, it's just called the best, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's correct. All right, now to get to the rest, we have Connor from Andrew Linton. He writes in, hi, Ben Hansen and the rest of the podcast crew. I finally got around to watching Game Informer's super replay of The Legend of Zelda with Cork and that goober Dan Reichert.
Oh, brother. I apologize.
What is your memory of that super replay?
My memory of that one is bungling a critically important purchase at a store. And because I think we had an insistence we weren't going to be using walkthroughs on that at the beginning, at least.
yeah,
and then we
maybe.
gave up because Reiner wrote the one that had Kaplooey in it.
And it was wrong in a
Yeah.
couple places. It was very
Wrong.
It was a rough playthrough.
Yeah.
Anyways, Connor says, like every other super replay, I loved it. But what caught my attention most was something Andrew Reiner said in episode 6. He mentioned he wanted to see a game controller in the future that you could split apart and snap back together whenever you wanted to. A concept that now exists with the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con controllers. Whether it's a coincidence, an idea so obvious is only a matter of time to come true, or Reiner actually is from the future is a question that was brought to my mind. Have you guys ever thought of something, a cool idea for a game, console, or anything of the sort, only to have it actually come true a couple years later? I'll go with Mario Odyssey. I basically designed that game, yeah.
Well, going off the controller thing, we actually had a feature in the magazine that was a controller that came apart that I wrote that Reiner was probably referencing in that super replay. But we designed like the controller of the future, and this was like 6 years ago, and it came apart, and I think it had motion sensing, and I think you could reprogram the buttons and stuff like that.
And you could use the IR camera to track if you're doing rock, paper, or scissors.
That's right. It felt like you could feel how many ice cubes were in it.
I really wanted a rhythm platformer for a long time before. What was the runner? You know, Elite Beat. What's it? The Beat Runner? You know what I'm talking about?
Game
Elite
Freaks
Beat
game?
Agents?
No, not Elite Beat
Harmonite?
Agents. It's the
Bit Trip Runner?
Bit Trip Runner.
Oh.
Years before that came out, I was like, I want a game like this where you have to actually jump in time with the music as you're like, doing platforms. So I'm glad that those games exist now. Like
Yeah.
When I
Harmonite.
was a kid, there was a contest to like submit your game idea to some place, and they would maybe consider it for development. And I remember sending in, I was like, it'd be really cool if there was an X-Men RPG, because I was like really into the X-Men. I was like, it could be like Final Fantasy, but it'd be multiplayer, and you'd have all the X-Men in there. They'd do their powers like it was magic, and then you could maybe even play it multiplayer. And then a few years later, the X-Men Legends. Was it Legends?
Yeah.
Was that
and
the
that's
one?
when you were first made a millionaire?
Yeah, that's right. Finally.
Amazing. Sophie wrote in and says, hey, I think you can just call the Nintendo Switch controllers Joy-Con and not Joy-Con controller. The word con comes from the Japanese shorthand way of saying controller, so you don't need to say controller twice. Thanks, Sophie. So no more shall we say Joy-Con controller. It's Joy-Con.
Wait a minute.
I've actively started doing that.
Share the joy.
Are they riffing off? I'm just getting this maybe, but joystick, is that what they're riffing off?
Oh,
I didn't even think of
never
that
thought of that
before.
either.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. Those guys are clever.
Yeah, I thought it was
It's
just
like a
like
character named Nabbit. It really sticks with you.
I thought it was just like this is a happy thing. You'll have joy.
Yeah, because I was like, what does the joy mean? But that maybe it's like
Maybe it is
joystick.
joystick.
Or, yeah.
Cork, have you ever wondered what the joy means?
What's
No,
the joy mean?
it seemed fairly self.
Have you ever wondered what joy is?
Hey, GI crew.
Yes.
If you knew there would be almost no third-party support for a game console, but it gave you access to a smaller selection of reliably fantastic games, i.e. Nintendo, would you still pick up the system? Is the promise of a few games you know you'll enjoy enough for you to justify this kind of purchase, like the Switch? That's from Connor from California. Yes.
absolutely.
That is the reason I bought a Wii and a Wii U, and the reason I pre-ordered a Switch.
When are these other
Absolutely.
games coming out? That's the question. Because there's no reason to buy it at launch.
I think Breath of the Wild is the reason to buy it at launch.
I bought a Wii to because I wanted the best version of Twilight
But you
Princess.
have a
I
Wii
didn't
U.
buy a GameCube till Wind Waker came out.
We don't know exactly how the Wii U version is going to compare to the Switch version. But also there's something really fun, and I'm sure you experienced this with the Wii, about playing a new Zelda on a new console. Like there's a thrill to that. So yeah, for sure. I mean, it's silly. Obviously, it'd be great if there was amazing third-party support, but I love Nintendo's design sensibility so much that
I can't help it like getting wrapped up in the excitement of like, oh, it's coming next week. I don't want to be behind. Even though like
Kyle,
logically
it's
it's
not next
like I know it's not next week. Like logically I can be like, I don't need to buy this for Mario. Mario's not coming out for months. Why don't I just wait till Mario? It's like I want to be part of the hive mind.
And still, you haven't finished Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Why? Hey, I came to Breaking Bad very late to begin with.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
There's no multimedia functionality on the Switch, but all of Breaking Bad is baked into the hardware, actually. It's taking up a sizable amount of those 32 gigs.
That's why Netflix isn't on it.
That's right. That's all you need. Hey, GI Crew, could
Hey.
another developer, this is from Wade Stacy in Vicksburg, Michigan. Hey, GI Crew, could another developer, this is from Wade Stacy in Vicksburg, Michigan. Hey, GI Crew, could another developer, such as Sony or Nintendo, pick up the IP that is scalebound? Who really has the rights to this game, Platinum or Microsoft? How does that work? It's an interesting idea.
I think Microsoft owns it.
I would think so,
Right.
but can you think of other games that were dropped and picked up by another publisher? Like Brutal Legend is an interesting case
that's a
because
good point.
Ghostbusters.
Double Fine didn't own the rights to that. They had to buy it back from EA eventually, but
Sure.
it still kept the same name when it switched from Activision to EA. So it's weird how sometimes you have to kind of reimagine it and sometimes you don't. So I don't know who owns the name Scalebound. Maybe it's just in that fine print about whether or not the studio owns the name or the publisher.
So are they saying like could another company make a game called Scalebound?
Could Sony swoop in, pick it up, and still call it Scalebound and release it as
Kind of like when a
Ah.
TV show gets low ratings, but some
Right.
third tier CW kind of thing will pick it up.
Right,
And-
right.
Sure.
It's like when
Yeah.
your best friend breaks up with somebody. It's like, how long do I have to wait before I can swoop in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Microsoft owns Scalebound, and it's like, and if they want to offload it, if they think it has value, they'll hold on to it. But if they don't think it has any value, then they'll be like, yeah,
I don't
take it
think
here. We'll sell you the
Microsoft-
whole thing.
If somebody approached Microsoft and said, "Hey, can we buy that?" I bet they'd be open to.
Yeah, I think they would be.
Well, I'm sure there's
considering
some-
they counsel it.
I'm sure there's some tech developments they got out of it
Sure.
and whatnot, but it's an interesting question. I'm sure it's a case-by-case basis. Scott Campbell writes in and says, what's your biggest user interface or experience gripe? Mine is within Super Smash Bros., which I've played hundreds of hours in each title and am involved in the competitive scenes. Default battle setting is timed match. Everyone changes that setting to stock every time because the game won't record new defaults when you change those settings. Grr! What are yours? What are your
I love
equivalents?
that. I love
It's
that-
so stupid.
it. Is so stupid. You should be able to save just your default settings.
Yeah.
No
that's
one
good.
likes time matches, no matter how
Never.
much Nintendo seems to think that
Yeah.
that we like it.
Yeah. Get out of here.
To get everything else right with Smash 4 and still leave that relic of the past, it's insane.
Yeah.
In a similar vein, we talked about it in the game club, but learning new moves in Pokemon is still a nightmare. I hate the forget old moves. Just let me use my stylus. Let me just drag and drop into the 4. I don't want to do that. Are you sure you want to forget this new move compared to keeping your old moves? It's a disaster.
Yeah.
Same UI as the Game Boy 98.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any that stand out?
When you said UI stuff, I thought you were thinking like health on a screen or something, or like when
Oh,
anything
sure.
on the screen takes up like half the screen.
Okay, yeah.
I remember the old Legacy of Kain game, like was just ridiculous with that. Like it was like literally a third of the screen. But also Gears of War, I never loved their health. That icon would pop up in the middle of the screen.
Oh,
I
yeah.
always felt like awkward.
Did they still do that before?
I think, didn't they?
I don't know. I didn't play 4.
I never got shot when I was playing Gears.
Oh, I get it. So that one kind of bugs me.
I liked the 360 actually. When you set up your account for the first time, it gave the option to change a bunch of settings. Like this is how I like to play shooters. This is how I like to play racing games, et cetera, et cetera. And I liked that a lot because it would kind of default all your settings for you. But they got rid of that for Xbox One. It's just
Strange.
seems
Of all the things
silly.
to get rid of it, maybe just a hassle to coordinate with different
guess,
game
yeah.
publishers and whatnot.
What if this is kind of like along the same lines? It drives me insane how like HBO Go and Netflix and Amazon Prime have almost completely different interfaces depending on the platform you're using them
That
on.
doesn't make
yeah,
sense.
It's like you're on PlayStation 4 and it's like, oh, this is, I can't remember. This is how this works. Oh, we'll go to the Roku and it's just a freaking nightmare. You know, oh, this is tiled. Oh, this one you
Yeah.
slide things over.
Also, this is outside of games. HBO Go,
Yeah.
at least on the browser version, I understand when you go into like a narrative series, it'll always start you on season 1, episode 1.
Mhm.
I don't want that with John Oliver's Last Week Tonight. Give me the latest first.
Yeah, that
don't
doesn't
make me
make sense.
leaf through from season 1.
Yeah.
No one's watching it through like it's Game of Thrones, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, and Netflix, I am watching 8 hours of Community, so just stop asking. Yes, I do want to do this.
Kyle?
I agree. I had well now I feel like I had a really boring story. Then I decided that I was like, I'm not gonna tell it.
Kyle from Salt Lake City writes in and says, "Howdy,
There
GI
we go.
Crew. Recently, I keep finding myself in
It's
a
how I
slump."
accidentally resubscribed to HBO Go when I was trying to open HBO Now.
Oh, it sounds really good.
Yeah. I know. It was a hard. It was a hard time for me and my family. I wish you guys wouldn't minimize it
Oh
so
my
much.
God, you're boring. Kyle from Salt Lake City writes in, "Howdy, GI Crew. Recently, I keep finding myself in a slump where I want to relax and play a game, but nothing sounds fun at the time. Do you ever get in a slump where you can't decide on what to play because nothing sounds fun? How do you get over those slumps? Those lovely lady slumps?"
On the subject of Netflix, that seems like that's 99% of the time is just giving up in defeat after scrolling through a bunch of stuff.
Uh-huh. Oh, there's
My continue watching is just like this tiny, like paper thin slice of the timeline where I've just given up. Like the opening credits haven't even finished, and I was like, "Yeah, this looks stupid."
What was that? There's that
No,
Onion
thanks.
there's that Onion article. It's like a new Netflix subscription level where you can just browse. You don't actually watch anything.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
I think this is a good time of the year to have that feeling. And I feel it every year where there's a sense of panic of like, why am I not getting into any games? Like, it's a good time. I just went through Mario World for the first time to like go back and play older stuff. But don't worry, the good games will come. And if Jeff Cork is to be believed, apparently Yakuza 0 is one of the best games out of the gate this year.
It's really good.
Yeah, so don't worry about it. Relax. If you feel like you're in a slump and you're panicking, like, maybe I don't like games anymore, it's all over. Hey, one will come that'll surprise you. It'll tickle your fancy. You just got to wait for it.
You live in a beautiful state. Go outside.
That's right. There are more fish in that
Kyle.
pond.
I like to go back in time and look at like top
Dinosaurs.
100 lists of like, I don't know, Super Nintendo. What am I missing? Is there anything there I haven't played?
What are you playing now?
Well, actually, this is similar, but it's like one game I missed last year. Was Hitman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, never really played it, and I'm going to start that up, I think, tonight.
I'm also planning on starting that up, and I look forward to maybe getting around to that with
I
you.
also have Final Fantasy 15, which isn't doing it for me, so I'm kind of
It's
slogging
really-
through it.
yeah.
It's like one of those things where like, I wish I liked this more.
Yep.
and,
Yeah. Every once in a while, I have this with 15, where I just sit back and say, has this brought me any enjoyment? All of this time I poured into this game, have I enjoyed any of it? It's like, let's break down the different factors. No, none of this makes me happy. Done. Get out of here. Get out the door.
You're listening to podcasts.
That makes me happy.
There
But
you
I
go.
could just do that and stare out the window and have a better
I
time.
felt that way about Dragon Age Inquisition. I poured 80 hours into that game, and I looked back and was like, why did I even play that whole game?
Game of the year. Gary from Reno, Nevada says, "Hey, GI Crew. Hanson recently did a video with Cork diving into some memory card and trying to piece together the person who originally owned it. He said he loves the video. Anyways, Hanson said he really wanted to do it for a while. So my question to you guys and gals, is there something that you wanted to do for the magazine or online that you haven't gotten around to yet or are afraid that it's too dumb to do? What's too dumb to do?
Well, it's not too dumb to do, but since I've started writing about games and since I started at Game Informer, I have been wanting to write about the Philips CDI, like Zelda Mario games. And a couple issues ago, I finally tracked down that guy, Steven Radosh, who was a producer on those games. And I talked to him for a long time and wrote up this big feature. So that's kind of along those lines of like something I really wanted to do for a long time and was like trying to find this guy for a long time. And it finally came together. And I really like that feature a lot.
Are you most proud of that than more than anything you've ever done? For the magazine?
At Game Informer?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that might be my favorite feature that I've written.
Wow. All right.
Wow.
One idea I've had for a long time, I know we've talked about it a couple times, but it's kind of similar to Replay where you're playing old games.
Hang on, I'm going to write this down. Ryan will love it.
But it doesn't actually even have to be old games. It could be a new game. But basically, you're just playing a game, and then you have 2 or 3 people who are playing it with you, and you're basically improving what's happening. So you'd play it on mute, and then you would improv the characters and what they're doing.
Right.
I think it'd be fun.
I agree. Yeah, we talked about that. Like in Extra Life in the past, we've gotten silly, and having Tim there playing Gang Beasts and just kind of like role playing games
Right.
is so dorky,
Could
but
we
I'm
do
also
like
really into it.
Could we do a Telltale game without subtitles or something and do it that way? Like
That'd be interesting.
But I like
try to
having,
block the decisions even and just
but I
like
like
go with
having
what
the-
happens, you know?
I like
It's
having
almo-
the mechanics of like moving around. Like
Yeah.
that,
Oh,
that-
sure, yeah.
I think it's almost more
creative.
fun when you can actually physically control the characters too.
Yeah. One that is a similar vein that I've wanted to do on the podcast for a little while now is like years ago, maybe. I don't know when it was now. But we did a live stream where we read all of the Resident Evil abandoned movie script that George A. Romero wrote. and Wade had awesome sound effects he threw in there and like music. And maybe it's just because I've always wanted to be a theater kid and I've never been a theater kid, but I was so into that. That was so much fun. And Cork read that. And so I've wanted to do something with that on the podcast like that, where people like could submit fanfic, like shortened fanfic, and then for anything. And then we'll just make like a radio play version of it. It would be so dorky that I think some people would really hate
fun.
it. I think
I want to do it.
I want to do it too.
So if
maybe,
you got a script, send it in.
well, I'll post something on the site if we actually lock it in and decide to do it. But that'd be a fun back half of the podcast. Also, I've always wanted to do, it'd be so intense, but I want to do a choose your own adventure replay episode. So it'll like pause and then different options will pop up and they'll each be for different unlisted videos. So it's like, you know, Ryan will say like, Ryan Shea, get on out of here. And then it pops up, do we swap Brian Shea in with somebody else? And we just make this Telltale style, all these branching paths about like, we go this way in this game. We go this way in this game.
Well,
we
you
talk
wouldn't
about
even
this
have to-
topic. We talk about this topic. And then it's just infinite paths and we record them all and people can go their way through
well, and
it.
you wouldn't have to record the one where Brian Shea stays because nobody's going to pick that one.
You're such a dickhole. There's a million ideas. It's just a matter of time. But thanks, Jerry. Jim Pinto from Beecher, Illinois.
You tell me.
Oh, well, he just wrote in. He says, how much groin is everyone in the office?
How much?
How
we
much
just-
what?
Groin? Which is a reference to that memory card video that we did, Cork,
Oh.
which is very nice.
That was a good video, by the way.
Thank
I
you. You
liked
tweeted it out. And it's like, I never get a sincere tweet out of Reeves. That meant a lot.
Yeah,
Thank
I know. I
you.
should have joked about it.
Anyways, Marty Callie from Springfield, Illinois wrote in and says, hello, Ben Hansen and crew. I just watched your walkthrough of the Oasis map from Overwatch with the folks from Blizzard, and that might be one of my favorite formats for developer interview. I know this is two Hansen ass kissing in a row, but yeah, so we Skyped in
You'll allow us
Blizzard.
Spread them out.
And we walked through the Oasis map and just did a deep dive into the design of that map. So Marty's wondering, if you could interview one developer and walk through any level from a game they made, who and what would you choose? Personally, I'd love to hear Casey Hudson talk about the suicide mission at the end of Aspect 2. Yeah, so what would you guys choose?
Hanson, I think you and I have the same answer.
Navajo chapter from
Beyond Two Souls,
Beyond-
David Cage, baby.
I didn't think of that, but that would be...
Oh, really?
We are fascinated by that. We should become scholars just of that one chapter of Beyond Two Souls. We played through it all in Extra Life if you want to watch that. It's so weird.
But aren't the other chapters in that game really weird? As
Oh
well?
yeah, but that
This
stands
is
out
like, yeah.
That's
as
a
just this
marked
expensive anomaly. I genuinely want to play through all of Detroit Become Human with You
Yeah, let's
in
do it.
video.
Let's do it.
Okay,
It'll be super fun.
done.
I
We'll-
would like to sit down with Hideo Kojima and just talk about the end of Metal Gear Solid 2, where it goes off the rails and gets really
Reeves,
like.
I wrote down Arsenal Gear in Metal Gear Solid 2 with Kojima. That is
Really?
absolutely the way to go.
I just because I'm a huge Metal Gear fan. It's like one of my top 5 series at least, and I really love the first one, and I love the second one. I had some qualms, but especially the end.
You
get
had
to
some
the end,
qualms?
yeah, and there were so many qualms at the end that I was like, I'm so stuffed. I can't eat another qualm. But it got so weird. I thought not even just the like 61 scissors and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I thought that was fun. Weird. The stuff after that
Like the fight?
with the Patriots and like all going back and like the Patriots aren't even real and all that stuff. You know what I'm
So
talking
you
about?
want like up to the end of the game, like fighting Solidus on the rooftop,
Yeah.
the whole thing.
But yeah, I would start with the very end.
Okay.
So some
Well, it's
mild
Arsenal
Metal
Gear, what
Gear
you're saying.
Solid 2 spoilers.
That's fine. That game
Ah,
is
whatever.
just amazing.
It's
Yeah.
still worth playing even if you've not played it.
Yeah. I would love all of that game, obviously, with Kojima, but I think just that Arsenal Gear, if you had to narrow it down, that sequence is wild with Naked Ride running around. Hey, GI crew, what question do you wish would be asked on the show? This is from Tony Dungan from Northfield, Minnesota. Not Dungy, Tony Dungan. What question do you wish would be asked?
Where have all the cowboys gone?
I think of, I feel like I try and get it across on the podcast as much as I can, but just the idea of like what people actually do all day in the office, I think is interesting.
You like that? Insights into our lives?
Yeah, because I think like the community, it's like, oh, it's just replay and some test chambers and then podcasts, but we've talked about it. But again, so much of it is, all right, I need a third pass in editing on this preview. Can someone look at this? And then Cork's looking through police abuse forums and says, no, I'm busy. Like that type of like day-to-day interaction, I think is really a majority of our time
Yeah.
that we never really talk about. Or like me
Creeping on my screen.
creeping in the screen, or like, editing cover story videos, or, preparing for interviews, stuff like that, where it's a little more dry, but that's what we do all day. But also, I like when people ask like what we're proud of. I feel like every time we tweet out a story, we should have a little proud ranking on a scale of 1 to 10, because it's nice to know when someone's like, I'm really, really proud of this feature, like you with your Philips CDI thing, versus like, here's something I did, it's pretty good. Like that Oasis map tour, I'd give it a B- personally. But there's a video that I have in the chamber right now that I would give an A+ that I cannot debut until next month, but I'm super excited about, So that's what I want to know.
Last year, one of my friends, I was kind of a guy I just met recently, but he was like, we're talking, it's like, oh, you work for Game Informer, that's cool. And then a couple weeks later, he like, I think tweeted at me, or it was on Facebook. He like posted a story I'd written from E3. And it's just like, when you're at E3, you're not writing the like top of your game. And I'm like, just like, he's like, oh, this is cool. I just read one of your stories finally. I'm like, look, if you want to read some of my stories, I'll send you some stuff. Like that's like, I just felt sort of embarrassed. Like,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's an example of what was that a question? I don't even remember how that came up.
And the question is, what do you wish would be asked?
Yeah.
And then Hanson talked about he wishes he could assign a
That's
proud
right.
ranking.
Yeah, because like that's the stories I'm not proud of. But.
Jesus. Come to GameInformer.com for E3 2017.
Yeah,
It'll be
you know,
great.
it's
What top notch
Oh,
rating?
we do good jobs.
We want to be relatable. Like, I could have written that.
Well, you know what? He said he thought it was good, so I don't know.
Cork, why don't you ask yourself a question?
Okay, I have to say, this one, full disclosure, you kind of prep us on some questions ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
To pull back the curtain a little bit. I love this question, and I do not have a good answer for it. Like, I think this is a great question, but again, I got nothing for it.
Got nothing for you. Classic Jeff Probst. Ian Levis writes in and says, Game Informer show question, : do you have a journalist that you look up to? Who got you into journalism? I don't know if they're going game journalist or what angle here.
He's not a game journalist, but like Dave Barry was someone I would like was very excited to read about and made me want to like write,
Sure.
for like a magazine. Or a
Chuck
newspaper.
Berry's cousin?
And his, like, truth to power, when I think about Dave Barry,
Oh yeah.
he's quite a journalist.
Who is Dave Barry?
He's
He's a columnist. He
Yeah,
like
he's a
writes a
columnist.
funny
Isn't he-
column
he's a
for the
humor columnist.
Miami
He's a
Herald.
humorist.
humorist.
Yeah.
He's very funny.
Yeah.
He wrote an article once about setting your toilet seat on fire. That was very humorous.
Is
He
this
just
that type of humor
he just
that you
made
don't
me
laugh
want to
at?
write
Okay.
for something.
I'm a big fan of Jim Davis. His exposés in the magazines. The newspapers always got
Yeah.
that.
Like, why can't Odie fit through this door?
I don't know if it sounds pretentious. I always liked Malcolm Gladwell stuff. Like I liked his books, and then I actually like went in and like, oh, he writes for New Yorker. I should read some of his stuff. And I always thought they were interesting and cool deep dives into things that you're like, I wouldn't think this would make an interesting article, but it does.
And I think we've all spent over 10,000 hours yelling at you about when to use an apostrophe. So
That's right.
I think it all works out.
And so now I know why I'm using them wrong.
I think of like the gaming side. Like I said, I look up to like 1UP from back in the day.
Sure.
Peak 1UP is my jam, and I don't know. I look up to like Mark McDonald. I think like on a 4Play podcast. Like he does a good job of like hosting, but still being opinionated and hopefully not being too grating, which sometimes I veer into.
Actually, the
but
1UP show's a good job because I watched the 1UP show before I started at
Yeah.
GI2, and I thought that was a good show.
amazing.
Read a lot of E EGM.
Cork, you're a sophisticated newspaperman. Are you just going to say Woodward and Bernstein?
You know.
It's Bernstein. Bernstein.
Woodburn and Berenstein.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. If we're doing gaming stuff, like since like the early '90s, I've always looked up to Andy Eddy. I always thought he did like, great work for like video games and computer entertainment magazine.
What is it? What are the secrets?
I just thought he was a really good writer, and he was like funny and engaging, and yeah, I've seen him a few times at events, and I'm always too shy to say hello.
Is that true?
Uh-huh.
You're too shy to scream?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. Hey GI Crew says, do Victor Fam. He says, just call him Victor. Done, Mr. Fam. Hey GI Crew. So 2016 was a great year for games, but it was also a great year for films. What were your top 5 favorite films from 2016
Top 5?
Yeah,
Oh,
we
I
can just
didn't-
go with like
any
some
order?
favorites.
I'll come right out of the gate. Captain America: Civil War, probably my number one.
Is that this year?
I can't remember having more fun in a movie since.
that
last, like, 3
airport
years.
fight scene. You saw this
It
film,
was
right,
really
Cork?
fun. It was a payoff for so much setup for like all those movies to see like characters that you love interacting
Yeah.
one another.
Yeah,
It was great.
it probably helps that I'm really into all those characters to begin with. But I thought it
I'm
was a lot
not
of fun.
really. Like, I like the movies just fine. I'm more interested in the business of that. But that fight scene is one of my favorite action sequences ever. It goes on for so long, and it's just a series of fun gags with the two characters going
It's
up
fun to
against
see
each other.
Spider-Man finally interacting with those guys and like holding his own.
Yeah.
And the whole Ant-Man stuff.
The whole Ant-Man stuff. Yeah. So that's your number one?
Ant-Man, Giant Man.
For the entire year?
Yeah, that's got to be my number one.
Yeah. Kyle, what do you got?
I liked Arrival a lot. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of like what did Zootopia was this year?
Zootopia was
this
this year. What about?
I think though like Kubo is like way up there for me. I really like Kubo and the Two Strings a lot.
It looks great.
Yeah.
A couple story
also
things that I
great.
was not so keen on, but it's a great looking
I know you had a
stop-motion
lot of
film.
concerns about the closing song and the credits.
It's stupid.
Yeah, that
They
song
use
is
all my
real
guitar
stupid.
I thought it was a
gently
good
weeps,
cover.
except they play it not on a guitar.
But it's the whole
why
story is
it's
about a
weeping.
guy playing a stringed instrument and how
Yeah.
much those two strings on there mean
The
to him.
guitarist in the corner getting cucked.
Oh God.
Anyway, Kubo is good.
What about between? I had a tough time between Zootopia and Moana.
Uh,
I think Moana might be
Moana.
overall more beautiful, more enjoyable. I think Zootopia is a much more interesting movie.
I think I like Zootopia more.
Yeah.
Not to diminish Moana. I thought Moana was great, but
I think I might give it to Zootopia
I like Finding
as
Dory
well.
a lot too. I know you were kind of cool on Finding Dory.
Yeah,
but-
Oh, I forgot Finding Dory was this
Yeah.
year.
Midnight
What about
Special.
I'm trying to think of grown-up movies. I just
Midnight Special, I think is
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Michael
yeah,
Shannon does a good job.
for sure. Yeah, I really enjoyed that movie. La La Land.
I've not seen that.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen that one
I'm a
yet.
huge Whiplash fan.
I want it.
One of my favorite movies ever at this point.
Oh, that's the same guy.
Yeah, same writer
Okay.
director. It's a musical. The structure, I really like the musical bits. It's an oddly structured movie. The transitions in and out of the music, and it just feels a little bit like two different types of movies shoehorned together.
So is it kind of like the opposite of Whiplash? Because Whiplash is kind of
So tight.
dark and
Yeah. Well, there's still some
little
dark
grim.
emotional stuff in La La Land. That's what's weird. The entire film isn't like a throwback to like 50s musicals. It's just the musical numbers largely are, and then the rest just feels like a lighthearted-ish romantic comedy set in L.A.
sure.
Yeah.
Another film, I think maybe one of the most underrated films of the year, Nice Guys. Did anybody else see that? It's another
No.
Ryan Gosling film.
That's right.
Shane Black directed it. Guy who did
Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3 and what is it? Kiss Case Bang Bang.
Kiss Case Bang Swang.
Kiss Kang Bang Swang. I thought that movie was. I went in not knowing what to expect, but it ended up being like one of the funniest movies I saw this year, and
Yeah.
like a really fun just action buddy cop. But they're really detectives, but they're trying to solve a
I've been meaning
case.
to see that.
The story was interesting,
Yeah.
and it's really great performances overall.
The
Go watch it.
yeah, Kyle kind of glossed over it. I think Arrival is amazing. That might even be my favorite of the year.
Wow.
Looking at it, I think especially like the first half an hour of that movie. Oh, like I was on the edge of my seat. Not that it's intense very much so in the first half hour, but it's like this is exactly what I want from a movie. Just gritty, not gritty, but just super realistic take on like what if aliens landed,
Yeah,
how would
just-
society react.
Like the whole sequence of them going up into the ship.
amazing,
It's really great.
amazing.
Yeah.
Cork, did you see Arrival?
I have not seen it yet.
Oh god,
good.
oh
Should see
god,
it.
so many cool things in it.
Nobody
Um,
said Rogue One.
That's
I
fine.
liked it.
Got the
Good
job
movie.
done.
Rogue One got the job done. All right, what do you guys like for your favorite email?
The UI one.
I like the UI one.
That
I
was
like
interesting.
what question do you want to be asked one? Even though I had no answer.
I think it is a clever one. I wish Cork would have had something. He really let us down, and that's the reason that we're probably not going to give it to Tony.
The UI one was good. I like the movie one too.
Yeah, movie.
maybe it's a
It's
little
always interesting
too
to talk
basic.
about non-gaming stuff too.
I think it's
Yeah.
interesting. Like, hey, what entertainment do you like? That's the question I want more of. What entertainment stuff do you like that's not game related? I don't know.
Yeah.
What's your favorite? This?
What about the one about something we wanted to do for a long time at the magazine?
Oh, that was a good one too.
I think that was good.
I think that's maybe the best one.
Yeah, Kyle,
I said UI, and I'm sticking to it.
Cork.
It's an
I told you
interesting.
mine.
It's an interesting facet of games that I don't think about a lot.
I like the things that we want to do for a long time at the magazine.
Are we
I'm
voting
leaning
on
that
this?
way. Can we live? Can we live with that? If Reeves and I are on the board of that train,
All right.
ain't no getting off of this train. Jerry, Reno, Nevada, I'm giving it to you. Great question. Are you guys disgusted? Can I star
Absolutely
Jerry?
disgusted.
Hey, you always pick it anyway.
It's just what Hanson wants.
It's true. All right, there we go, Jerry. Congratulations. We'll ship you out something real nice. Thank you for everybody that emailed it and podcast@gameforward.com. We encourage more thoughts, more feedback. News stories you want us to cover, anything that might have slipped through the cracks, anything you want our feedback on. We'd love to inform you as best as we can. But for now, stay tuned because we have the co-founders of Vicarious Visions to talk about the evolution of that studio that you probably vaguely know the name of, but it's a fun thing to focus on for a while because they have cranked out so many games, and I'm sure other game developers could learn how the hell you organize a team to crank out that many games. So stay tuned for that. Karthik and Guha, welcome to the Game Informer Show, guys.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
It's a real honor to have you. You guys were in charge of a studio that is, I feel like, quietly one of the most prolific video game studios of all time. How the hell did you pull that off?
We've got a lot of games. It's I think we lost count. Maybe over 100.
It's been like 125 games or something like that. Not SKUs or platforms or whatever, but games.
Totally
full-on games.
It's insane. I recommend people go look up the Wikipedia entry for Vicarious Visions because it's like early Rare, where it's like, what the hell? They have like 9 games a year at least, just cranking these things out. How big was the team?
So my brother and I started Vicarious 26 years ago almost. Mm-hmm. And so we were in high school. This is like when being indie was not cool, and
before you get all the chicks for it, I understand.
It was the way not to get girls, I'll tell you that, And I was 15 and Guha, you were 14 when we started the studio in our parents' basement. And,
wait a minute. So this is 1990. You're 14 and 15. Yeah. Who the hell thinks of starting a video game studio at that age?
Dude, we're gamers, we're like playing all kinds of games. I'm like, this would be cool, and
it's when you start off by saying, hey, look, I love to play these things and I like to make things, so why don't we make a video game? And we didn't own a computer that could really run the proper games at that time. We didn't know how to program, we didn't know how to do any art, so we thought, hey, look, what could possibly be the big challenge about this thing? Yeah. So that's how we started.
And then you just
get into it and you peel back the onion and it becomes so interesting. And so much fun to actually do it that we just kept on doing it.
So were you just reading a ton of books and you eventually learned how to program, or were you guys just kind of overseeing production?
No, we got into all of it. And the thing is, you got to keep in mind, 1990, 91, it was like just around the advent of CD-ROM, right? So pre-internet, and or at least we didn't really get access to the internet until we went to college. And so there wasn't a ton of information out there. There certainly wasn't like middleware and tech and tools like there is today, right? So there wasn't a lot of go-to places, and it's not like we could afford to go to the game developers conference and stuff like that, and it's more of like a dark art, back then. At least that's how we kind of saw it. So, frankly, it was like reading a lot of game magazines and like, trying to piece together stuff from like behind the scenes interviews and how do people do it, and playing these games and kind of, hacking it and trying to figure out how this stuff was made.
So how do you go from just scanning magazines to making games licensed for the Game Boy then? Because that was the first platform you made for?
So we actually started out doing PC games, and so like a lot of the games that we played back then, that was super popular, were like these point-and-click adventure games like the old Sierra and LucasArts, kind of games. So the first game idea that we had was a point-and-click graphic adventure detective mystery game, and it was called Synergist. And that was the game that we started working on in high school, and it was pretty crazy. We saved up enough money to buy a computer that we could do some development and stuff on, and all the art. Guha actually did a lot of the concept art and the sketches and stuff, and then we had them painted, and we would go down to the local Kinko's and get it scanned because we didn't own a scanner, and so we would like scan them. And this is like before Photoshop, before QuickTime, and all that kind of stuff. And so we would like, and I still have all of the art in my basement actually, all the original. You got some of it,
yeah.
And it was all hand painted, and we would scan them in, and we would we actually borrowed a video camera from like the high school, and found like one of the early sort of digitizer cards, and then worked on a video codec so that we could like play back video, like capture enough frames fast enough in RAM, and then like string it together and then synchronize audio to it that we would record separately and have full motion video. And we built like a little blue screen set down in our parents' basement, and to film actors in front of a blue screen set, and we would do like full motion video and then hand painted backgrounds, and yeah, that was our first game.
That's
but you asked the question, how do we get started? We actually met a guy. He quit his job at Kodak. We actually lived in Rochester, New York at the time, which is in Western New York. And he quit his job and he started a company in his basement. And he said, "Hey, what do you guys like doing?" And we said, "Well, we'd love to make stuff and we like video games." And he said, "Well, you should make one." And he handed us a copy of Turbo C and a book. And he said, "Go learn how to program." And he handed us a copy of Autodesk Animator. And he said, "Learn to make artwork." And we said, "Okay, that's a start." And we did.
So you guys make it seem like it's all so cobbled together. Do you feel like do you feel like anybody could do it and all it takes is that insane drive to think that you can?
Well, it took us a long time to do the first game. We started in 1990 and we finished it in 1996. So this was like an epically long process of like designing it, having it fail, designing it, having projects fail, having, all kinds of stuff. And you do learn stuff along the way. And we just didn't stop doing it. So it took us a lot to get through it.
We were working other jobs. We worked at an art gallery, checking codes for tips. That was kind of our first funding source. And we also met somebody who's in the game industry, became lifelong friends. This guy named Brent Erickson. He worked at a company called Access Software, and they made the Tex Murphy adventure games. And
wow, okay.
And Brent actually licensed his game engine, and because he started working on games when he was a kid back in the Commodore 64 days and all that. And
it's pretty funny when he came to Rochester with his contract, with his licensing agreement, and he saw a bunch of high school kids on the other side. He was like, "Oh, okay."
You guys have like fake mustaches pinned on, trying to do anything you can to make yourself seem older.
It's totally true.
Flip on tie, all of that.
Two people in one trench coat.
It was all of those things, but it kind of we were scrappy about it, and then we started going to like CES and stuff, and we were looking for publishers, and we finally got a publishing deal for the game, and we were self-funded, kind of getting into a demo. We had to like make the full game. We got our first publishing deal. I was a freshman in college. Guha was a high school senior when we got our first publishing deal. It wasn't a ton of money, but it was still, really significant.
It was enough to make it. And at that time, making a game was like $50,000, $100,000, something like that, which was big money.
Oh yeah,
people who were making money as coat checks trying to pay for this game.
Yeah, I'd imagine. So what
felt a big lucky break actually, and it helped us make it. And as soon as we turned over the Gold Master, the folks were like, "Well, thank you. We don't need to hear from you again." So that was sort of like a big bit of. That's how we got our first game done, but that's also our first taste of the business world, let's say.
Do you feel more connected to those early periods again? Because last year you left Activision, now you started Valen Studios. Does it feel like you're rekindling some of that spirit?
Oh, totally. I mean, it was like we weren't in our parents' basement; we were in our basement, and but it's super cool, and that was actually one of the key motivators to get back to being indie, and start over and saying, okay, it's just back to being the two of us. What do we want to do that's going to be sort of new and different? And and it was really hard, because it's like this is the studio that we've built since we were kids and through college and very prolific, as we did all the handheld and going into AAA console, and there's an amazing team at Vicarious, and to let it all go, where it was sort of intertwined with, with who we were, it was very hard. And but there's that burning desire, and to go off and do something new and try things that people haven't tried before.
We heard that being indie was now cool. We're like, maybe we could, yeah. In any case,
so
we wanted to actually get back to our roots, and this gives us an angle on that.
So what is the vision? I mean, are you guys looking to get into console development again with Valen, or are you trying to do more abstract ideas, or what's the overall goal here?
We're not trying to repeat ourselves, as far as what we've done with Vicarious. Super proud of that. Want to approach things pretty differently. I mean, we've looked a lot at our past history and also the industry overall. It's like, when we started, there was this, when you looked at innovation and how the industry grew, it was almost a little sort of a linear sort of trajectory. You went from like 8-bit consoles to 16-bit, you went from like 2D to 3D, you went from CD-ROM to like 3D accelerated graphics and stuff on PC. And it was all of this processor that was getting better and better. And that's how technology was evolving. But now when you look at what's coming out of CES and we look at technology and platforms, it's exploding in all kinds of different directions. And so there's so many more opportunities, so many other things to try and explore, new ways of being experimental and creating new kinds of experiences that have never been tried before. So we wanted the ability to build a studio that was going to go after experimental new ideas, not necessarily esoteric ideas. Some of them might be, but some of them could be the next big thing. And it may not be with traditional platforms. There could be, new hardware platforms, technology. You look at AR and all kinds of sensor tech and other wearables and other things. So there's some interesting things going on. And we've also had a lot of experience doing hardware as well as software. And like, well, maybe there's things to explore there. So it's trying new things and being experimental about it, and what kind of a new experience or feeling can we create, for players that haven't been tried before.
I mean, we've always been tinkerers, whether it's like the first game that we made, trying to figure out how to do it, or all along. So this really allows us to get back and spend. It allows us to do two things. One is get really close to the development again, which once you build a big organization, it's you get a little further and further away from that. So we're right in it right now, back to our early days.
Just
but the other thing
cramming
is,
books.
What's that?
Just cramming books again, trying to remember all this stuff.
It's actually fun to be a little curious, and have curiosity be a full-time job is actually a great thing. And I think that so there's that. And then one of the things that the two of us really enjoyed is the discovery part. How can we really discover sort of these things that could be the next phenomenon? And in not only the stuff that we do directly ourselves, but we have the ability to work with lots of other companies as well, lots of other like really curious entrepreneurial individuals as well.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing too. Part of our pay it forward is years ago, we had that experience with that fellow Paul Travers that gave us the programming book and the animation book. And this is an opportunity for us to do a little bit of that too.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fledgling indies and a lot of really cool startups and entrepreneurs that we want to help. And so we've got our own ideas about things that we want to try, and but we also want to have the time, to kind of get back into that indie scene and see who we could help, and because there's amazing ideas coming out of all different corners.
So what's it like to work with your brother for 27 years?
It's a little weird.
How much has your relationship changed?
We had a little time to work things out.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Just a couple years in there. Has the relationship changed much over the years? You just have this rock solid working bond now?
Yeah, I mean, it changes. It could be a real challenge sometimes working with this fella.
I'd imagine.
Mostly I listen to complaints from other people and say, yeah, I agree with you. I just agree with all the complaints. But it's actually fantastic. I think, my tip for anybody getting into business is find a great partner, someone who can really count on.
It's tough to go it alone, and it's like you kind of need the sounding board. You need somebody who can like challenge you, and it's great to do it as partners. And it's also important to have mentors as well, people that you look up to, people who can give you a different perspective on things. And that's really important. And also, like, as you're building a team, an awesome team that you sort of gel with, where where we're not afraid of challenging our each other's assumptions. All that stuff is really important.
Yeah, and you look at that output. I'm still trying to fathom how you guys manage that. I mean, so many AAA studios struggle to get one game out the door for years and years and years of development. Do you guys have a secret? Do you just have the structure, the passion? How are you able to crank out so many games so quickly?
So, I think the structure plays a role. The process plays a little bit of the role. The passion plays a huge role. But I think the biggest thing is you always look at, when we built a studio, we always looked at, okay, well, what's the product that we're really excited about? What's the game idea that we're really excited about and passionate about? But then how do we build and energize that team and make sure that the team is totally committed to that idea? And as we grow, make sure it's about the teams and about the team's growth, and put the people first and put the teams first. And so we'd often turn down ideas that were just not compatible with the teams. And so we do that on a routine basis. We did it as indies. And, one of the top jobs that we had is building that great culture, but also generating the opportunities that people truly get that level of commitment and passion towards. And then also, as we grew it as a studio within Activision, same story. And so that's also something that is very central to our thesis here. Just do the things that will really motivate us, but also are the basis to build strong teams around.
I think that's another key element. Like, when we started, again, we were like the first few games that we made took years to get done. We were still learning how to make games, and this game called Terminus, which was our epic space combat RPG, it was our first 3D game. It was a persistent world. It was PC, Mac, and Linux cross-platform communication. We had voice over IP working in 1996, and it was like crazy techie, kind of game. It actually won at the first Independent Games Festival. That's how we got a lot of recognition in the early days. But it took like 4 years to make, and then we got into the Game Boy business, and GBA and like Tony Hawk on GBA and all that kind of stuff. And the projects were smaller than like a big AAA console, and we were still learning. So we kind of had that sort of iteration cycle. And it's funny you brought up Rare from the early days.
Yeah.
Go and look at their portfolio back on the NES and stuff. They did a ton of games, And then all of a sudden, like when they got like 16-bit and the titles that they did, Donkey Kong Country, Killer Instinct, all of those games, they were just breaking out. And it's almost like that was sort of the precursor where they learned everything about game making. And we had a lot of cycles to learn about it. What worked, what didn't work.
So you're like the Beatles in Germany, right? You were like the Beatles practicing in Germany for a while before they came out, like finely tuned, ready to make console games?
We worked, it was cool working on different IP, like working on like top IP from different publishers or licensors. We did like early Pixar stuff, for example, learn how how they develop IP. We made the first ever SpongeBob video game before anybody knew who SpongeBob was. And so we get feedback from the creator of SpongeBob. And so there's all these different ways that we learn, and you kind of stay humble about that, and you got a lot to learn, and how to create great IP, and you had studios like Rare and Naughty Dog and studios like that who really looked up to, and we wanted to be like them someday. That was part of the aspiration, and then we were lucky enough to like partner with other studios. Id back in the day on Doom 3 when we did that on Xbox, and so you learn a ton in that process, right? The studio builds capability, and most of us were like homegrown. We didn't have a previous experience. We were able to over time bring in folks from the industry that had a lot of experience, but most of us were like homebrew talent, and we're figuring this out. That was a crazy, indie business as we were growing it. And then that kind of set us up. Not only were we like gamers as like playing tons of different genres and tons of different kinds of games, because that's what we do, but we get to work on all kinds of different genres and be pretty prolific about it. And then there was the shot at going after big AAA stuff, and it was a large scale team and all that, and it sort of prepared us for that. And the studio's in great shape because of that.
Yeah, it's wild to think about just the connections you guys have had, not only to the video game industry, but just the wider entertainment industry with so many licensed products, like you mentioned, like, Monsters, Inc., stuff like that, Spider-Man, yada, yada, yada. So is it just like those licenses that make the team passionate, where they think like, I love Tony Hawk on PlayStation, I would love to make the best possible portable version of that for the Game Boy Advance?
We always tried to, that was maybe a piece of it that made the commercial model sort of work and say, okay, well, here's the customer, that kind of thing. I'm working for a solid business here. But the number one thing is we always try to bring something new to the table. And sometimes we're much more successful than other times. But we always said, okay, what about this game is going to put a new creative stamp on this thing? And sometimes they're constrained by certain things, but that was the part that really kept the teams curious. It was never like a get one of these things, just crank them out, type of thing. In the middle of making all the handheld games, it was very important for us to say, well, if there are all these handheld developers, how is our team going to be looked upon as like the best one?
Yeah.
It's not just going to be another one. And so that was the secret to, like, for example, the first breakout Game Boy title for us really was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 on GBA. It won the first BAFTA for video games.
Wait, really?
Best mobile gaming.
Okay.
Back in 2001, I think, right?
Yeah.
Back in 2001.
It was the first ever 3D mobile handheld game ever made, and so it was. There's a real story to that one. I'll share with you that story. So this is back in 2000. There's a real story to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on GBA, which was I think it was a pivotal moment, for us, as an indie. So we had just wrapped up our first game with Activision, which was Spider-Man on Game Boy Color, and everybody was really happy with how that game turned out, and especially Nintendo. And they said, hey, we've got a new Game Boy in development, and called the Game Boy Advance, and we ended up being one of the first developers in North America to get kits for the Game Boy Advance. And we're like, we've got to do a launch title for this thing. And it's been a great working relationship with Activision on Spidey. Let's go for the gold here. Like, we're all playing like Tony Hawk, at the office and all that, but let's figure out how to do Tony Hawk and do it justice and bring it to portable form. And so what ended up happening was it was E3 2000, and so we're at E3, and Guha ends up going to the Activision booth, and he doesn't realize it, but he meets Tony Hawk, who's at the booth.
Tall skateboarder guy.
And he comes back and he's like, yeah, I met this guy. I'm like, dude, don't you know that was Tony Hawk? It's like, don't you know what he looks like? And we're like, we got to do this. And so we called up guys.
Actually, so we went there with some mocked up screenshots. The classic bull shot.
Okay.
Yeah, totally faked up
Like,
screenshots.
we got a color print, and we're like, here's what the game looks like. Of course, the game didn't exist at the time. So we're like, here's what the game is gonna look like, let's say. And so this guy that I met, I was like, oh, we want to make this game. And so I wound up pitching the idea to this tall skateboarder dude who turned out to be Tony Hawk. He liked it. He liked the idea. And later that show, they said, oh, yeah, okay. We met with some folks at Activision and said, okay, go ahead and make that game. So I think that'll be a good idea. And so then we called the team up.
Yeah, we're like, I think we're going to be able to do the deal for to working on Tony Hawk. So we came home from the show. And we're like, guess what, guys? I think we're going to be able to get this deal with Activision to do Tony Hawk. And the engineer's like, well, we got some really bad news for you. Because the thing that we had mocked up was this sort of skater-dyed, isometric, rendered view of a skate park. It was actually the warehouse level from the first Tony Hawk game. And they said, we got a big problem. The problem is, like, to render out all the sprites of the skater from all the different angles and stuff and all the different moves, it's going to take about 80 megabytes of storage, and the Game Boy Advance cards are only 8 megs of storage. So we can't do this. And we're like, oh man, we've got to figure this out. And at the time, as we were like getting into the hardware and as the way everybody understood it, the GBA was sort of like a Super Nintendo in handheld form, and so the team got to work to figuring it out, and they figured out how to render the character in real-time 3D, even though it's a 2D device about as powerful as a Super Nintendo, and it was all like done in software. and we could do all the animation and all that kind of stuff as real-time 3D. So the storage size is small, and the levels were, even though it was like 2D images of the level, the world, the collision world that describes how a 3D character, interacts with like, a half pipe or a quarter pipe and like collides against the world. That was all done using parametric equations. Literally everything was done on graph paper and measured out with a ruler and converted into really long formulas, parametric equations that would fit in memory, because we couldn't just store a collision world in memory. There's just not enough memory. And it would fool the 3D character. You look at it and it's like the 3D character is hitting against this quarter pipe or a half pipe, even though it was a 2D image, but it looked 3D because it was colliding against a 3D world. And that's how we solved it. And it was like real-time 3D, and it was fast and fluid, and it was like 60 FPS on a GBA.
What the
It was
hell?
totally insane.
Well, the entire time you're making this, then is Activision and Nintendo knocking on your door, and you're like, "No, it'll be out in a minute. It'll be great. It'll be great." And then you weren't sure until the last second.
Well, I think it was like that summer when we were working on it, we were really nervous about proving it out. But once we were able to like get the core thing up and running and people saw it, it was like it was pretty amazing. And not many people had seen what the GBA could do at the time. And so we were working on that title, and then we started working on other big titles. We did Spider-Man's Mysterio's Menace, which is one of our all-time favorite GBA games that we worked on, as well as Crash Bandicoot. Bringing that to GBA, and that was like
Crash's Huge Adventure.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot: The Huge Adventure, and our goal on that project was like, hey, how can we really bring that Naughty Dog experience of the original games to GBA and get that look and feel and pack it all into that tiny cartridge.
How did you get that license? What were those early discussions like for the Crash Bandicoot titles? Because it was blasphemous to have it on GBA.
I think if I recall, Universal Interactive that had the rights to Crash and Spyro, they were already going multi-platform, on console with the IP, and so GBA was a new platform, and we had a pitch for it, and because we were doing some pretty incredible things with top IPs, and we were lucky enough to like say, all right, we're going to do really high quality experiences with some of the biggest IPs, in the industry, and that's what we did. I mean, we became pretty prolific, over our time, sort of being indie, working on lots of different IP with many different publishers, and then the team really wanted to work on bigger, more complex, bigger AAA console games, and it had been a great relationship with Activision, over the years as we were indie, and it made sense for us to become part of Activision and work on big titles together.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I think over that kind of history, we learned a lot. Worked on a lot of games, a lot of different genres, and we all kind of grew up. We're like from teenagers into our 20s and 30s, and we all kind of grew up together doing that.
And I'd imagine some people look at Vicarious Vision's lineup and what they released, and they think like, okay, it's like the handheld versions of all these games. All right, that it seems like if you want the handheld version, you can play this one. But from the developer perspective, I'd imagine that there's so much enthusiasm for like Crash Bandicoot. We love Crash Bandicoot. We could make a 2D Crash, and like we love Mario World. We love Crash. Let's try and combine those as best we can. Is that the passion on the team in those early Crash days?
Yeah, I mean, we loved all kinds of different, games and IPs and stuff like that. And it was just a super talented team, and it gave us an opportunity to work on like teams that were maybe like 10 or 12 people on a team.
And, IP played a role on it, but we tried to make it so it was never the kind of like a little brother or downpour.
Yeah.
We really rejected that approach and said, okay, well, what can we actually do with this hardware that makes it a unique experience? So the best games that we did on handheld were all just unique experiences. And if we thought that, hey, this is just going to look like a watered down version of the bigger system, let's not do it.
Yeah.
And so we would turn down those things and say, well, for Crash Bandicoot, for example, he'd been kind of away for a while, until we brought him back at that point for several years. And was kind of a novel experience. It was super tight. All the content was brand new. And that kind of thing. So for the fans, it was actually, bringing it back for the first time after a little while of kind of hiatus.
And you guys,
that's what drove the team.
Yeah, and then you had the crazy novelty even further of blending the Spyro and Crash universes together. Pre-Skylanders, this was the first crossover. Was that a hassle to get together?
Sort of remember that. It's just.
That was a little blurry.
A little blurry. There's a lot of games, over these years, and and you had your ups and downs as a business as well, and it was really challenging. I remember this is before we got the Tony Hawk project, but we were growing as a studio, started working on PlayStation 1 and N64, and we started working with a couple of different publishers. And what happened was one of our publishers, and it was a startup publisher, they went out of business. I mean, these are all realities that happen in the industry. But we were 40 some odd people, and we were growing, and it was several $1 million worth of contracts canceled overnight, and we were in a lot of trouble, right? And my brother and I ended up getting a bank loan, a personal bank loan for $1 million.
What?
And we were only a couple years out of college at that time. We had nothing.
Must have been
a lot of liability.
You can ask, why would someone give us $1 million?
It's a great question.
That I can't answer. We were on the hook for it.
They were big Spider-Man fans? I don't get it.
No, this is before we had any of those projects.
Okay.
This is we were still fairly no name. We were doing some interesting things and trying to make a go of it. But it was really challenging. Running that, but we knew that we would be paying that loan off for the rest of our lives if we weren't able to
actually
make it work.
That was what was happening in the back. You're talking about the Activision knocking on the door,
yeah.
Nintendo's saying, guys, where is it? Actually, they kind of left us alone, but we had this bank loan that we needed to pay off, so we had to make this work.
Yeah.
These are all work. It would have been a real problem.
I mean, this is all the kind of stories. I mean, they're not unique in that way. I mean, you talk to a lot of indie teams and that have grown over the years. They've got lots of really interesting stories when reality becomes real, and we're following our passions and trying to build a great team, and we're trying to survive the ups and downs of the industry and do great work. Because we love it, but these are a lot of the challenges, that you have.
Yeah.
So I got to say, sort of, we worked super hard, but in retrospect, looking back, we're also lucky. The work paid off, and so we paid back that loan in the next year.
Nice.
Within a few months in the next year, we paid it back, and we grew as a studio.
And later that year, Tony Hawk came out.
Later that
year,
year, we kind of, we're on solid footing.
Hell of a year. Well, speaking of ups and downs, was a big down trying to navigate who owns the rights to Crash Bandicoot? Was that a hassle? Because I'm confused between Universal, Activision, then Sony owns a part of it, right? Isn't it just this crazy chimera of rights?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the nice things about sort of being a developer is that we can really focus on the creative, and it's the business side of it, the publishing side of it can be complex, in any of these things. And, it's as fans, we're really looking forward to the trilogy remaster that Vicarious is working on. So we're really excited about that. So, I mean, the awesome, this is one of the most satisfying things for us is as hard as it was to leave, and we have sort of incredible faith in the studio and the team there. We're just fanboys now, and so what we learn about is what we're reading online and tuning into sort of the E3 broadcasts and all that kind of stuff on some of this stuff. It's just super cool.
What don't people appreciate about the challenges of working with all these licenses and working with so many partners and publishers? What did you learn over the years that really stands out?
If things go well and you make a great game, and people really love it, that's awesome as creators, obviously. But as a consumer, you just never know sort of what goes into making it. There's the whole ride of making the game because it's only great not because it was just like the last one, and not because it just happened automatically, but because so many people put so much effort, they took a lot of risks on the project to change it, to make it innovative, and then brought it all together. So that part is complex. On top of that, when it comes to licenses and so forth, and we didn't, towards later part of our time with Vicarious, those became fewer and fewer. And so most of it was owned IP, owned and controlled IP. Even there, lots and lots of different stakeholders, and many of those are inside the organization, outside of our studio, but inside the organization. And there's a lot of navigation there. And as leaders of a studio, it's important to support the teams and give a clarity of focus and stuff like that. And essentially, work with everybody else to make it as smooth as possible because it's hard enough just to make the game. So these are the kinds of things that you'll never see as a consumer necessarily. You only ever see it if the game is bad. You'd be like, well, why did they make that? It makes no sense. Why did they do this? It kind of feels janky. And it might have been for one of those reasons. But if we do our job well, you never really appreciate the number of things that had to go into it to make it run that smoothly.
That's one of the things. It just takes so many people to make great games, and especially when you're doing like AAA console stuff.
Large AAA stuff.
Large
I think
AAA
there's
stuff.
some really nice stuff that's done with much smaller teams these days.
Yeah, whether it's original IP or whether it's licensed or whatever, people want to make great games, and there's just lots of different skill sets that are involved to kind of bringing the whole thing together. And so getting that to all work and have everybody work really well together, and feeling that they've got that creative input and they're able to help shape it, but at the same time have a real focus around the design and what you're going after, because if you kind of get into a crazy design by committee and stuff, it can go in all kinds of different directions. That's what makes it hard, and plus technology is always changing, and and the market and the environment, consumer tastes and stuff are changing. So it's like a super it's already really complicated to make games, and the industry is super volatile. I mean, you kind of look at it. I mean, what games is entertainment and technology, two of the most volatile industries, kind of thrown together. It's super hard, to make great games, and and you don't necessarily see that as a consumer, nor should you. It doesn't matter, as a gamer, you want to. You want to have a great experience and have great value for the money that you're putting into it.
Yeah,
so
for sure. So I'm still trying to figure out the flow from Activision. I mean, before they even purchased you, and then certainly after they purchased you, is it just going to meetings at Activision? They say, okay, Guitar Hero, Skylanders are hot. Would you guys like to work on this? Or please, we need to crank out more of these games because the fans demand it.
It's a very collaborative process, and like I said, there's just lots of different sort of people from different viewpoints and different roles and stuff like that. It's a very collaborative process in figuring out what's exciting for the team and what's an innovative, sort of concept, what's a new angle on it. It doesn't matter what the project is, and you try and get that kind of alignment. We had such an overall fantastic experience, with Activision and being, part of the company, and you're wearing multiple hats as well. You've got the hats as studio leaders and working with the teams internally, and also collaboratively working with, marketing and the publishing side of the business, and learning all the practical realities. I mean, when you're working on stuff like hardware, you're trying to create really high quality hardware that can actually be manufactured at scale, that you can actually get into consumers' hands.
You're talking about like the Guitar Hero DS thing?
Yeah, sure. All of those things, and it's like, or coming up with crazy new inventions like the guitar grip and, making that a reality. And it was like super collaborative experience, with different parts of the organization.
One of the most fun things about that, it's different when we're on the outside to when we became internal, but not entirely different, because you always come from different perspectives. As fundamentally game developers, we wear the development hat, But we also learned how to wear the publishing hat, the market research hat, the finance hat, the legal hat, all the different perspectives, because ultimately you kind of rise or fall together, that kind of thing. But depending on where you're coming from, you're going to advocate for very different perspectives. And so that was a really good, constructive process. I know folks have all kinds of different experiences in this, but ours was, I think it was hugely educational for us. And, we made a lot of friendships along the way. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's easy, I think, from the outside to see Activision and their studios just like these black holes of the most popular IP, where they take these really talented studios like you guys, or like Raven, Neversoft, High Moon now, and it's like all hands on deck. Let's convert all these studios, get them pumping towards where the cash is flowing. What do you think about the outside perspective of those black holes of Activision studios?
Well, I think the number one thing to keep in mind is, in all of these companies, it's still the talent is a common denominator. What motivates great creative people to work. And I think it's always been, throughout my experience, Karthik's experience, that kind of core creative satisfaction is the most important factor in creating great games. And so then you'd say, okay, over time, the company's actually done really well in making, really good games. So people must have been, I think accordingly, you do it in a manner that's also really satisfying to people. So I think for that business, it's been a really good experience for the studios.
I think from the outside, it seems like a black hole because you don't talk about that. You talk about the games, because ultimately that's what matters, right? And all your work, everything kind of comes together in the game experience, and that's what matters for gamers. And that's why the like how it's done or whatever, may seem like a bit of a black hole, from the outside, but it's, on the whole, and this was true when we were working with multiple publishers as indies, everybody's just trying to create, awesome games. Because like the one thing that's true about this industry is that it's the awesome games where it's both the creative and the commercial, all of these pieces kind of come together that have success, and then you get to go again, and you get to go again, and continue to do great work. And because gamers vote with their wallets, and so like, and so you want the stuff that's critical acclaim that fans are going to love, the stuff that's going to be commercially successful, so that we can have a paycheck and feed our families and all that kind of stuff and do what we love to do. And and I think that's what it just comes down to at the end of the day, no matter what people might think. Sort of goes on behind the scenes.
One thing that has occurred is, the size of games has become bigger. The amount of resources required to make a game, the number of people, and so that's meant that it's meant that multiple studios need to team up to work on individual titles. So that's just the nature of working on, PS4, Xbox One, these kind of next generation titles.
And for Guha and I, we're like, you know what, we want to get hands on, ourselves and try different things. Ourselves at a very personal level. And so that was kind of the choice of going back to being indie.
Yeah. You guys, do you want to talk about your relationship with the Call of Duty series and how much Vicarious Visions worked on that?
I think that, I think there's been sort of on and off. I mean, Vicarious wasn't a primary developer on COD. Right? And, but it's one of those things where I think that a lot of people pitch in to help out, on the franchise. There are
those videos out there of Call of Duty Roman Wars. Did you have any thoughts on that in retrospect?
I think overall, Vicarious didn't really release any actual Call of Duty games.
Right.
I can say that while there've been support roles played from time to time, it was never made a part of the Vicarious portfolio.
Okay, gotcha.
That one in particular is a little controversial. It's not something we could talk about.
It's too hot.
So, part of it is that that's Activision's information. That's not ours to share.
Totally,
right?
Got it. So you mentioned the Spider-Man game for GBA. What other works are you especially proud of? What do you think is the top of the heap for Vicarious Vision's crazy output?
I'll tell you what were some of the games that didn't sell really well, but we were like super proud of. Just as it's like really fun to play. Jet Grind Radio was super cool to work on, just from a style standpoint and how that game came together. We did a Bruce Lee game, and that was so much fun. And like, if you could probably find it, maybe like a secondhand shop or
It was a
something.
good game, actually.
It was a
good game.
really fun.
Is
game.
it like a brawler or what is it?
Yeah. It was like it was a side scroller, brawler, but like the combat and action and all that kind of stuff, and the move set was so Bruce Lee. That was really fun. What were some of the other games that may not have gotten a lot of limelight?
Well, with Jet Grind, I'd imagine it'd be really tough to try and you're a mid-sized studio in New York to try and emulate such a Japanese style. Was that difficult?
It was pretty close.
But it's
pretty close.
If you can find, there's probably footage of it on YouTube. It's worth checking out for any old school Jet Grind fans. But like the team, it was again a super small team, but they were like such fans of Jet Grind Radio. I think they really nailed it. And what were, do you remember like some of the other?
I think Mysterious Menace you already talked about. That was a GBA game. One that was actually quite a commercial success that I got a lot of satisfaction was Skylander Swap Force. That was pretty awesome.
For sure.
So I really enjoyed that one. I enjoyed working on it. I enjoyed the creative, and I had a lot of fun playing with it. It was actually launched at a time where my older daughter was right at that sweet spot for Skylanders. So that was, our moment.
Yeah.
We'd spent a lot of time together on that.
I imagine that Toys to Life genre is so tough because as it goes on, it just gets slightly more complicated. And trying to explain to someone who's trying to get into those games now what they have to buy, it's just Excel spreadsheet after spreadsheet of different facts. Was that frustrating for you guys to stack on top of that?
But this is true of lots of games and lots of genres, right? Where it serves that core audience, and it can get more complex. And the challenge is like, how do you still keep it accessible and very inviting, for new players. That's one of those challenges with success, right? And you're trying to, you really want to cater to the fans and people who love it, but you also want to invite new players into the fold, so to speak. But yeah, I think there's a lot of games that we're very satisfied with. I loved working on DS. Because that was such a quirky, different hardware platform, and we did some really neat things on that. Like Tony Hawk's American Skateland was one of the first online titles, and it was us and Mario Kart that debuted the online service for Nintendo.
Did you ever get any feedback from Nintendo on all your pioneering efforts on their systems? Did Miyamoto ever say, "Hey, good job on Tony Hawk"?
We have gotten a lot of good feedback over the years, for sure. And it's and look, we're total fanboys, right? Like, and it's like, holy smokes, can't believe this person was talking to us, and that kind of thing. But like we've gotten really nice feedback over the years and support, and it's been fun, and we try to do lots of different things. It's like even the DS stuff that we did on Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man was cool, was pretty stylish, and we really got to doing a touchscreen-based action game with really fast response and gesture controls. This is before touchscreen really became a thing with smartphones, right?
Yeah.
One of the less used ones was Roadie Battles on.
Oh my gosh, that was so fun.
Was it a World Tour, right?
No.
Guitar Hero World Tour.
Guitar Hero 5.
Guitar Hero 5.
Yeah.
On DS?
There were a lot of Guitar Hero games.
Yeah.
Do you remember Roadie Battles?
No. So this is on DS, Guitar Hero 5?
You explain.
All right, so on Guitar Hero 5 for the Wii,
it
was seamless online play that we did. No friend codes or anything like that, and we innovated a lot on that series. With downloadable songs on SD cards and all that kind of stuff. And on Guitar Hero 5, we did something super cool and like off the wall. And what we noticed was as as you got Guitar Hero fans who became really, really good at playing the game, it actually kind of became intimidating for a lot of people to step up and play the guitar. And I'm sure you saw this at parties
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that, right? And it's like, I'm not going to go anywhere close to like this guy playing expert Dragon Force or whatever, right? And we wanted to do something fun and off the wall and something that's accessible. So we came up with this concept of roadie battle, where in this mode there would be two teams, and I think we were able to do with like a total of 8 players, if I'm remembering correctly, at least 4. But basically, you have the guitarists and their roadies, and the roadies had their DS, and the guitarists are front stage playing the song.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as you boot up, the on the DS, connects you on the Wi-Fi network. It'll download a DS ROM from the Wii disc onto your DS, and all of a sudden you're backstage, and you got this dual screen thing where you are backstage of that song, and you act as the roadie for the guitarist, and you're running around backstage trying to mess up the amp, the light show, trying to set off pyrotechnics to screw up the other guitarist, the other team's play in this sort of battle of the bands kind of thing. And so what would happen is you would have like a roadie from Team A run across the stage and like set the equipment on fire. And the highway for that player, that guitarist, catches on fire, so you can't see the notes and smoke is covering it up, and you can't see the notes. So the guitarist is then yelling at their roadie to run to the other side of the stage and fix it. And they're like blowing out the fire on their DS into the mic. and they're trying to like get rid of the fire so that the highway is back to normal. And so there were all of these different ways you could screw up the other player from getting the maximum number of points and winning that round. And so it became this collaborative thing, between the roadie and the guitarist against other teams that were roadie and guitarists.
It was super, super fun. It was like one of the first, real-time companion apps almost.
Because, Nintendo was, trying to come up with different ways of like, hey, how do you create that asymmetric gameplay between the TV screen and this personal screen that you had with the DS? If you remember back on GameCube, they had that link to the GBA.
Right, the link cable.
And we did some stuff with that feature back in the day with Crash Bandicoot. And but then we took it a whole different level with like new kinds of gameplay experiences, and the roadie battle thing we were like really fond of because it was just so much fun to play, and it was one of those sort of creative ideas that the teams came up with, and it was something unexpected for players, as something you could do on the Wii.
I love that. I love those bizarre multiplayer experiences or just hardware quirky experiences that people have forgotten about over the years. But you guys must have so many of those, of just taking advantage and understanding every detail about every single system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was super fun.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, really, it was really really fun time. I mean, I think when you got quirky systems like that have features that are unorthodox, and then you say, well, how can you creatively push yourself? It is a lot of fun,
Well,
and that actually speaks to a lot of things that we're seeing now with lots of different types of hardware and tech that's out there to create sort of new kinds of experiences, which is cool.
So I look forward to seeing the spiritual successor to Roadie Battles from Valen Studios. Is that right?
Who knows what the future brings, but there's we're definitely exploring lots of different paths, and it's just sort of fun, kind of pushing the creative and trying new ideas.
Yeah. Well, few people in the industry have more experience than you two, so I'm really excited to see what Valen Studios turns out and where you plant your flag.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much. We're excited, sort of just being back in startup mode and thinking about like the next 20, 25 years, because I think we're going to be in the industry until our grave. I mean, it's like we just been doing it, for a long time, and this is what we love. And now we've got kids that are starting to grow up, and we're gamer dads, with our with our kids. This is what we love.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to seeing what you guys do. But thank you so much for your time, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to tune in next Thursday. We'll have another new episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show, guys, for a little post-credit sting. I'm here. I'm here with Andrew Reiner, Suriel Vasquez,
Hello.
Ben Reeves.
Hello.
Do you guys know why you're here? Outside of Reiner.
Well, of course.
I don't.
Suriel, if you had to guess what we're doing here, what were the four of us? When was the last time the four of us were on this podcast?
Oh, I realize we're here.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is the Nintendo Switch bet.
Yeah, and I nailed it.
We have all the details. We have everything. If you recall, we had a bonus episode a month or so ago, whenever they revealed that super cool Switch video, the first one out of the gate, and we bet on what we thought the price of the Nintendo Switch would be. Furthest off had to sing the Nintendo Switch reveal theme
Wait, that was what
do
we
we
bet?
in
know
its
it?
entirety.
It wasn't money?
Oh, yes. It was no money
no.
because you need to bet something that the audience can get something out of. Like, the audience doesn't care if someone hands somebody else $10. Like, whatever. It's a podcast. So here's what we bet, if you recall. Okay. Let's start from the top. First of all, Nintendo Switch, $299.
That's what I tweeted.
correct.
I was totally spot on.
Reiner, on the show, you said $350. 100% it's going to be $350. I bet my life on it. Suriel, your bet was $349.99, undercutting Reiner. My bet, it does not pay to be pessimistic, was $399. Ben Reeves, $379.99.
Well, Ben Hansen, what did you win?
Here it is. Nintendo Switch reveal. I have the lyrics printed
Oh,
out.
wow.
Are you going to
I
get
could
music
use-
with it?
I could use. Oh, I'm not singing this dry. This is. There's no way.
I thought the point of having one was that I wouldn't have
Oh,
to do
man,
it.
it's a long song.
it is a long song.
So are you going to warm up those pipes? Or
Me.
Are we going to have
Sound
the
like a
music in the background? What's
All
the
right,
beat?
let's go. I'll remember how this track goes.
Oh, there you go.
Little louder, wait. Little louder in those cans. All right. All right, you guys, especially in the chorus, I want you guys to really join in here, make this a little more
So
entertaining.
we're not singing the first part together? Or?
From the moment we met, you could see that I was filled with desire. Only one thing in common, baby, but our blood feel fire. Right? Sure, the birds ought to sing. Wouldn't ask you to change one thing. So be yourself. Come on, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Try to have a good time. Be yourself. Try to have a All right, now this is. Oh, it's like a deadly monster string. I wanted you and the whole kitchen sink. So be yourself. Try to have a good time. Try is the operative word. Be yourself.
You're at the party, so you may as well.
Try to have a good time. Right? All right. Oh, be
We're
yourself. Now we just listen to video game sounds. Yeah.
Sounds like the Rancor battle in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
who wrote this? Oh, thank God.
Hang on.
Did the Joker write this?
Voice to text.
Oh, go!
I can't and be your one if you allow it.
Exactly.
The lyrics are confusing. There's reason so deep, Archimedes wouldn't think of trying to figure out it. Need you like bacon needs eggs. I need you and there's nothing more to say. So be yourself. Yeah. Try to have a good time. Be yourself. Try to have a good time.
Boom. Oh, the crowd.
Try to have a ha-ha-ha-ha, yes! Ha-ha-ha-ha, yeah! Splatoon Championships, ha-ha-ha-ha, yeah! Ha-ha-ha-ha, yeah!
Oh, there's a second page.
Yeah! Ha-ha-ha-ha, yeah!
Yeah.
Switch.
Little mouth guitar.
Well done,
Thank you
Hanson.
so much,
Well
everybody.
done.
A couple things to point
You did
out.
like a
Yes,
champ.
yes.
Of those ha 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 yes, only one of them is yes.
Well, there's one yes, a lot of yeah-yeahs, and then a lot of yeahs. Also, I didn't remember the song singing about Archimedes and bacon and eggs and the desert wanting a drink.
So
Where did you get these lyrics?
Switch, I need you like bacon needs eggs.
Right,
That's
that
what
was
Nintendo
actually-
fans should be thinking.
the behind closed doors speech from Reggie involved a lot of egg metaphors.
Did you print these off online, or did you go and listen to the song and type this out?
I printed off, but it's not the full song. The full song you can look up, and I had to edit it for what they actually edited into the reveal. So you can sing along at home if you do a little home editing. All right, thank you so much, guys. $2.99. Of course, it was going to be $2.99. I
course.
don't know what idiot thought it would be $400.
Maybe you're thinking like the battery packs, all that stuff together, right? The whole
yeah.
pack, the whole
but maybe it was going to be a
kitchen
lot stronger
sink.
in terms of like horsepower and stuff.
It
like
could
that.
be. I was trying to undercut optimism about the price. All right, thank you so much. That is really the end of the Game Informer show. Bye, everybody.
Right, have a good time.
Switch.